Good morning and welcome to Friday's OTB AM. It's Adrian and Owen with you this morning. Owen, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian. How are you?
All good, yeah. How's the form?
Oh, not too bad. Can't complain.
Missed me last week?
Yeah, forgot.
You had to think about it for a second, so that's the answer right there.
Last week. Yeah, God,
huge endorsement of our ongoing relationship.
Huge absence. What did you do with your time off?
I
travelled.
I came to work. That's what happened.
Right, you just decided to take a lie-in last week, was that it?
That was pretty much it, yeah. I got kicked off the show for the day, happily, so that's really what happened.
I'm not sure who was happy about
suspension. In retrospect, it turns out that I wasn't just taking a bit of a 6-month break from the show, I was just actually serving a suspension for something.
Well, YouTube comments were very, very sad to see you absent last week anyway, so
were they, yeah?
You'll be delighted to hear that.
I must have a look back and just reacquaint myself with what went on with the YouTube comments, because that's a good way to spend your day.
Yeah, you and them, two peas in a pod.
This is like the Owen Sheehan weekend from heaven, by all accounts, upcoming.
Well, why is that?
So much Owen Sheehan goodness to look forward to. Tell the viewers about your plans for the weekend.
It's not like my weekend from heaven. I don't know where you're coming up with that. Like, Adrian seems to be obsessed with my plans for the weekend every time we do this on a Friday morning. I'm living
vicariously through your youth and through your successful football county. So go on.
Well,
indulge me.
I'll be at Kerry Mayo tomorrow evening in Tralee, and then Sunday morning I'm hopping on a plane to Dublin to get the club finals in, particularly Dr. Crokes against Corofin, which is going to be the game of the year by all accounts. Like,
there's players who've played in games of those significance that have taken more circuitous routes to get between one and the other than you're taking.
Yeah, well, you know, blame Irish Rail and their extortionate train prices, basically. We're basically flying from Kerry to Dublin is just as cheap these days.
Right.
And also cheaper, and also...
You live basically on the runway as well, so it's...
Essentially, yeah. So it's stone's throw to the airport, so that's what I'll be doing. And like, the thing is, if you fly all the way up to Dublin for a game that's been dubbed as potentially game of the year, then you're probably going to be disappointed. Look at the conditions. Looking out the window this morning, it's like, it's not a weekend that's made for good football, but I still have hope. I still have hope that Crokes against Corofin is going to be worth going to, and I'm sure, like, it's been the way the GA schedule has been set up this weekend, it's been preserved in this holy slot on St. Patrick's Day where nothing else can touch it. So the country will be watching, and I think it will probably live up to it.
It's funny when it comes around to it that, like, we tend to talk about the club finals, and that is one of the sacrificial lambs that it often comes up in that scheduling thing. We tend to talk about it, obviously, the vast majority of the time when we're not in the midst of it. And now we're in the midst of it. It doesn't really matter if it happens on St. Patrick's weekend or something else, if it clears up the schedule. Like, we tend to, when it's in the distant future, we tend to think, oh, well, that's St. Patrick's Day, it's a sacred thing, we got to sort of square that off. But actually, it doesn't really make any difference. Just put it some other time.
I agree. Put it before the new year, so allow the players to actually get a run that isn't interrupted by, like, this 9-week break between the provincial final and the All-Ireland semi-final, which is just strange, really. It's like a new season. It allows them to have the Christmas off, not really having the back of their mind that they've got an All-Ireland series to work on. And also, in terms of the pre-match coverage, you would get a bit more in December, I feel, because those club matches, those provincial finals, like the Mullinachta story and all that.
Yeah.
Well, I felt even preview for, like, Kilmacud against Mullinachta had a bit more about it than this weekend does, because look around us. Like, I've spent all morning looking at Cheltenham tips. Like, we're talking about the Wales-Ireland game this weekend. The Premier League title race is really hot.
Do you argue the conditions that, I mean, I know...
Conditions in December are much better than March, usually.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
you're rolling a dice, Adrian.
I know you are, totally. That's, yeah, totally, 100%, yeah. So, conditions outstanding, potentially game of the year. Different game than the semi-final 2 years ago, then? Yeah, well, in the semi-final 2 years ago, Crokes were healthy enough winners, and I stand by that was actually not too far away from an accurate representation of where the two teams are at. The thing is, Corofin have a bigger potential, in my opinion, to play above themselves than Dr. Crokes do. Dr. Crokes, if they play at their maximum capacity, will win on Sunday. And they might not be able to give themselves up for it? What are you saying? I just think that I don't know, the collective spirit in Corofin is greater than most other clubs around the county. Like, the fact that they've come back with, I don't want to say a bang this year, because nobody's surprised to see them back in an All-Ireland final, but the level of desire that they showed last year to get to the final and win it has been replicated this year, I think, from what I've seen. And, like, listening to Gary Syce in the All-Ireland semi-final afterwards saying that there's younger players in the panel, the competition for places is incredible. And I'm not saying that's not kind of a slide on Dr. Crokes, it's just a compliment towards Corofin. They are, in terms of all the club teams around the country, one of the best setups, and they do get every inch out of themselves. That's not to say they're a bad team either.
together. They're an outstanding football team. I just think Dr. Crokes are the best club in Ireland. I really do. Like, and that's not coming from a Dr. Crokes perspective at all. Most non-Crokes people in Kerry hate Dr. Crokes.
Oh, really?
Just to put that out there. I just think they're an unbelievable squad, and if they play up to their potential, they will win on Sunday.
So there's no Yeraism here, is what you're saying, unless it's like a double Yera where it's sort of kind of a side bluff.
Well, potentially.
It's possible.
That's you've really got into the spectrum of my psychology there, Adrian.
A double Yera.
Well, exactly. A double Yera, that's a high-tech stuff right there. Even the Healy Rays couldn't manage that.
You Kerry boys love a bit of lingo. We're obviously in the midst of Cheltenham, and it's kind of that time of the year where we all feel as if we're a racing expert, right? Like that's comes at the territory. Even when you're not, it's like, well, look, I need to borrow a couple of expressions here that are going to see me over the line and going to get me through, particularly when you work in an office like this and you're not like a crazy racing fan, but I need a couple of expressions that are going to get me through, and there are some key ones. My own particular one, favourite of them all, and it's a Johnny Ward special, by the way, as well, is that, well, that fella was particularly sweet on red rum there in the fourth. Sweet on. It's an expression that you never hear in any other walk of life.
Yeah, it's true. Like, you never say you're sweet on Manchester City to win the Premier League.
And you would never say that because you'd look like a fool.
Can we just say, it's the tipsters out there, just tell us you think the horse is going to win. You're not sweet on it. You think the horse is going to win. That's fair enough. You can use like layman's language here to communicate with us. It's totally fine.
There's nothing worse than people who you know are not racing people using that terminology, Nathan Murphy. It's, you know, it's not a great look.
Well, Nathan hosted a Cheltenham show in front of 2,000
Oh, he did.
people.
No, this is true. This is true. So maybe that was his sort of road to Damascus or whatever, that he had this sort of turn in the road where he figured out he was actually a racing man.
Rugby and racing, his two main sports.
Enjoys the trip, takes the trip well.
Lives for the trip.
I mean,
born for the trip.
What's the trip all about?
What is the trip all about? It's a good question.
Is it the distance? It's the distance.
Is a stayer the same as a horse that loves the trip? I think it is. Does the horse have legs?
Yeah, I would say that's the same thing.
Up the hill, bottomless ground. Can the horse last a trip in those conditions, basically, is what I want to know on a day-to-day basis.
She's a classy sort, she's a feisty sort, she's a good sort. A sort.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there should be like a little...
What sort of a sort?
I'm sure there should be a little community of mayors set up for mayors' rights to stop referring to them in ways that you wouldn't refer to a stallion, because that's so patronising towards mayors, I think, what you just listed off there.
Well, I'm just saying, he, she, classy sort, it's like, you know...
It's
not language you use when you're like doing your shopping.
Also, anybody who refers to a horse that has got so much character.
Great character.
Great character. Like, is the horse selling jokes in the stables, or like what's the story?
It's the way he might look at you. But you know the one thing that, above all the lingo on, that sort of gets the better of me, it's these, like the Johnny-come-lately racing fans who watch racing and get like ridiculously invested in it, and I mean in every regard.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And then like sometimes in the middle of a race are, for almost the entirety of the race, shouting on the wrong horse. They think they're shouting on, let's say, a grey horse, and it turns out it's not the grey at all.
Yeah, that was me. I realised yesterday that footpad is not a grey horse in the middle of the race, which I had footpad backed in. Not a great day for me.
Not a great day.
Cheltenham is shy anyway. That was actually a different race, as my empire came crumbling down yesterday. A lot of doubles in the mix yesterday, all of which had the first half come through, and all of which had the second half fall down. So that was one of my reactions to a day yesterday that kind of made me realise that I'm not a racing man. Cheltenham is shite anyway.
I really wish we'd captured your it's not the grey horse moment. That was really, I think, my Cheltenham moment of the week so far.
We want to talk about Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. By
the way, if anybody's got any more racing lingo that they want to get in touch with us about, we would really love to hear from you, so drop us a note on that.
Yeah. Did you, is this the celebration of the year last night, Aubameyang?
Mask of the year, perhaps.
What's the mask?
It's wrestling, Mexican wrestling.
I knew you would say that. I knew you would say that, a Mexican wrestling. That is Black Panther, Adrian. Have you not seen the Michael B. Jordan film?
No.
Well, yourself and Jerry Armstrong are one of the same. He,
right.
On Virgin Media last night, he was saying, what mask is that? Spider-Man, is it? And
I know, come on, I wouldn't have got that far.
Des was saying, probably not. And then he was reliably informed that it was Black Panther. So, no, not a Mexican wrestler. He's gone full Black Panther. The thing about Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, I'm always interested in his fashion sense, because a couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure is he wearing those gloves there, but he was wearing gloves in a football match that had the little touch tips that he could, take a selfie in the middle of a football match should he want, which I said at that point, that's probably as Arsenal as it gets in terms of fashion choices. But really, the Black Panther mask, like going behind one of the advertising hoardings to find a bag, open it and put on the Black Panther mask, is probably as Arsenal as it gets, despite the fact that he did something similar for Dortmund back in the day.
Did he didn't get any yellow card written for it, did he?
No, I don't think so.
It's going to happen that you're going to get pinged for that, because people are going to start putting on masks by way of a statement, and it's going to end up the same way as taking your shirt off.
Yeah, it's good publicity idea, actually. Like, if that was around the time when Black Panther came out, that could be seen as a publicity statement or something like that as well, so who knows.
Right, here's what's coming up over the next hour and a little bit. We're going to get stuck into all the back pages in just a moment, let you know what's going on there. Owen's got his Cheltenham guide, so he's essentially ripped off everybody else's tips and he's going to bring them your way in a few minutes. Ronan O'Gara is in New Zealand. We're going to talk to him about the weekend's rugby. That's coming your way just after 8 o'clock. It's a big weekend that we've been mentioning as well for Club GA. All eyes on Croke Park this weekend, so we're going to talk to you a little bit about that. Darren Cleary in the studio with the sports news after 8:30. Alan Quinlan also, as always, on a Friday to again preview the final round of Six Nations games this weekend. Just which way is it going to go? We shall see. It's undoubtedly going to be an exciting finish to this year's Six Nations. John Duggan live on the line from Cheltenham for the final time this week, and UFC London also takes place this weekend. Niall McGrath is our man on the ground there, and about 9:20 we're going to talk to Niall about why you need to be watching UFC London this weekend. You can get in touch with us on the hashtag OTBAM. It's a pretty jam-packed show. It strikes me that the schedule by design runs to have the final item begin at 9:20, which does not bode well for the duration of the show.
No, it certainly does not, and that is not going to happen.
Right, let's talk to you about what's happening on the back pages this morning. The Irish Times, as you'd imagine with the weekend that's in it, is rugby all the way, and a good shot of James Ryan, a player that Ronan O'Gara had been tipping is potentially the next Ireland captain. They're Ryan to run the line out in Principality Cauldron, so already a marker of his leadership qualities there. Ireland goal is to gate crash the Welsh party, writes Jerry Thornley as well, and more rugby lines there, including Jones wields the axe to put Cockanasinga to cut Cockanasinga for the Calcutta Cup clash. He's saying that he's not essentially cutting him, he's just sort of keeping him on the back burner, that he doesn't really want. Everybody's making a fuss about this 21-year-old who looks like an unbelievable player, and Jones is like, oh, we'll just put him on ice, it's fine, he's going to run the World Cup for us, so we'll see you in September. The Times Ireland edition, meanwhile, Gatland will target Sexton and Murray. This is very overt stuff from Warren Gatland yesterday, saying that he's going to do exactly as he did to Ben Youngs and Owen Farrell in the England game, target the Ireland half-backs, and sure, it'll all be grand for them, is the thoughts of Warren Gatland. We're going to miss Warren Gatland. I mean, he may come back in another guise. We might even be able to hate him even more if he becomes the England head coach after the Six Nations, but definitely the Joe Schmitz versus Warren Gatland thing is one of the most interesting aspects of the game this weekend. As you can see there, that picture that Owen mentioned a bit earlier of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang in his Black Panther mask. Rice Award looks stupid is one of my most favourite headlines of the morning. Mick McCarthy saying that the Young Player of the Year award should be thrown in the Liffey. And actually, do you know what? It's the most sensible comment that's been made of the week. The award in itself, and I've sat on this judging panel in previous years, it's an impossible, in an Irish context, right now, an impossible award to give out. So you should just do it for all the underage grades and leave off the Young Player of the Year award. So would you have made that case if you were sitting in that judging meeting? I think that and I know there's fairly split opinion on this, one and the other, that the panel were asked a question which they answered. Mm-hmm. So you think that it was the right decision? Yeah. So so you think the FAI should have taken it upon themselves to get rid of the award? I find it difficult to. I know that we need to sort of blame somebody for this, but actually I find it just difficult to see that there's any blame in it other than just scrap the award. Like, Declan Rice won it this year. That was the question the panel were asked. They gave it to him. The FAI said the panel have made their decision, and here's who they've given it to. That should be the end of it. We don't need to hear any more about this award, even this year. It's done. He's clearly not coming over to collect it. It clearly isn't going to form any part of the ceremony on the night, other than maybe one of those little sort of Oscar-styles montage. Also on the night, the Under-18 award went to this guy. The young player went to this guy. He didn't.
Is that how it works? I thought it was a fairly prominent part.
The young player? No, yeah. But what I'm saying is that's how it'll be. It clearly won't be a prominent part this year. But they just need to scrap it. Like it's every year there's controversy about it, because it has to be because we don't have enough young good players at senior level, essentially.
Who was the best young player last year, do you think? Like, so say the scrapping the award is not the thing.
Who would you give it to besides? I mean, I don't know. It's the net is so wide. Like, it's actually not even a young player. Like, it could be somebody who's 25 years.
Yeah. Well, it's under 25 is the award, isn't it?
I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. Like, we've spoken about this a lot on the show already this week. I thought, if I kind of same as yourself, if I'm in that voting committee, I'm voting for Declan Rice as well. And it's not up to us to.
It's a no-brainer. If you voted for anybody else on that committee, that's just a wrong call. Like, it's a no-brainer. The only question is whether you just make it defunct or not, I think.
Well, maybe they need to look at that in future.
Just scratch it. Leinster Pair extend deals is the other note on the Times Ireland edition there as well. Leo Cullen signing up for another 2 years as the head coach at Leinster Rugby. And Stuart Lancaster has signed up as well. The duration of his contract isn't known. Hasn't been made public, I should say. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting enough in itself. The Irish Independent, Rice should not have won the award, says Mick McCarthy, and a shot here as well of Bullish Taylor, as the caption says. Katie Taylor fighting in Philadelphia this weekend. No one can beat me, insists Katie Taylor. She weighed in just over half-pound heavier for a unification fight against Brazil's Rose Valente in Philadelphia. That's most likely going to be a question in the crappy quiz later.
There is no crappy quiz today. Yeah.
So we'll have to put it in next week's.
Yeah, the answer, Rose Valente, put it into your head, keep it in there for a couple of weeks, and you'll get it correct. It's probably going to be our toughest fight, by all accounts.
Colin Keys as well writing that Conor Delaney and Seamus Harnedy free to play after appealing suspensions for the game, the Division 1 game at Nolan Park over the weekend as well as the other.
Hold on a minute. Sorry, I actually missed that story this morning. What have they got off on?
Tomorrow's playoff game in Division 1.
So they're free to. The playoff game is going ahead and they're both free to play for that? Or is it that they are allowed to serve their suspension?
They're free to play in tomorrow's playoff game between the counties, right?
But that
leaves them suspended for their opening championship games in June.
Right, fair enough. That's I thought for a second that they'd struck out the suspensions for a moment there. But it's also kind of a weird one as well, isn't it? That they wanted to play that game this weekend so that they could get rid of the suspensions, and now they've gone back to them and says, well, actually, we're not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, I think that they definitely should be serving a ban because they both deserve to go for what they did last weekend. But at the same time, I think it wouldn't have been the worst idea just to allow them to serve their suspension this week. The match doesn't matter in the long run, but that's not Kilkenny or Cork's fault.
Both counties are examining the rule which precludes a suspension from a regular match being served in a regular or qualification playoff, as it's not determined to be the same competition and are expected to challenge it.
Yeah, that's very odd. Like, how is it a different competition? They got sent off in a league game. Tomorrow is a league relegation game.
It's the GA, so I mean, you know yourself. That is the Irish Independent this morning, and the Guardian is where I'm going to wrap up for the minute. An excellent photograph here of Bryony Frost after her win in Froden yesterday, the first ever female winner of a Grade 1 race at Cheltenham, and that's Frost's magical moment, as the Guardian writes here. And I see a tired team. Jones puts the pressure on Gatland. That's the Guardian this morning.
The Herald this morning leads with an interview with Philly McMahon. He says, I just didn't want to be there. Dub star opens up on personal struggles. So he's speaking to Frank Roach in the Herald this morning, and he says this year he's loving it. He says that the bit of breathing space has been good for him, and he says that he's hoping that he can express that in the games themselves, that bit of match sharpness. So interesting stuff in the Herald this morning. The back page of the Irish Daily Mail, it's a picture of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang masked marvel. Reads the headline as Arsenal beat Rennes 3-0, and prime targets is the main story. Murray and Sexton are in Gatland's sights, while Scholes quits Oldham after 31 days in charge. Paul Scholes is in, and he's out pretty much straight away as Oldham manager. The Sun then this morning is chuck it into Liffey. Mick Taker, says Owen Cowser's story there. And Joe putting dampeners on Dragons, says the rugby headline. The Mirror also goes with Mick McCarthy. Chuck it in the Liffey, says the headline. Big Mick's reaction when asked about Rice winning FAI Young Player Award. Gat is aiming to target Sexton, and Masked Marvel as well, says the Mirror. Auba is Gunner's Europa superhero. Irish Daily Star this morning is taking the mick. McCarthy says Chuck Rice's award in the Liffey, and go watch Peppa Pig. This was a quote here. This Derek O'Connor and trainer Ted Walsh celebrating winning the closing race yesterday with any second now.
What's the go watch Peppa Pig reference?
There was obviously a couple of critics of Walsh over the last couple of days. If you don't like racing, go watch Peppa Pig. That's what Ted Walsh said. What the exact? This was the British Racing Authority.
Right.
So the headline says here, Ted Walsh blasted British Racing Authorities minutes after rescuing a testing day for the Irish on an afternoon of fairy tale results at Cheltenham. So he was speaking afterwards, and he hit out at critics of the sport in his post-race interview, saying, if you don't like racing, go watch Peppa Pig.
But yeah, sure. Don't watch Peppa Pig.
Yesterday I can comfortably say, was better than any episode of Peppa Pig. And that's no offence to Peppa Pig.
No, Peppa Pig is shite, and it's very disrespectful to dads as well, by the way.
Is it?
Oh yeah, the dad is a total tool.
Is he?
He's an absolute bumbling idiot.
Bit of a pig.
Every single... I mean, they're all pigs is the point, but he particularly is an absolute fool, and he's no role model for any kids watching Peppa Pig, just FYI.
The Daily Telegraph is Black Panther strikes twice. Arsenal beating Rennes 4-3 on aggregate, and once again surviving and doing the business at the Emirates in the Europa League. Let's
have a quick look at the Irish Examiner as well. It's Martinstown Maestro here, JP McManus, his festival treble, and also celebrating that Bryony Frost win yesterday. That's the Irish Examiner this morning. Yesterday, your top tipster table.
Yeah, will you bring up yesterday's top tipster table and have a look at who did the business yesterday? Katie Walsh, of course, came first on day 2. She's in there in the top 5 again yesterday. She backed 2 winners. She backed tipped, I should say, any second now, and Defi de Soil. At number 4, then we have Paul Keeley of the Racing Post. Katie Walsh, by the way, is writing in the Herald if you want to check out her tips. Paul Keeley had 2 wins and a place. He tipped Frodon at 6-1 and any second now at 10-1, so 2 big winners for him. Then at number 3, we have Aidan Coleman writing in the Herald. He had 3 winners: Paisley Park, Defi de Soy and Cyril Delac. And Darren Norris of the Irish Examiner tipped the exact same 3 winners. He's writing in the Irish Examiner. And then David Coughlin of the Irish Daily Star comes in at number 1 for yesterday. He tipped 3 winners, but they were just a bit longer odds. He had Defi de Soil and Cyril Delac as well, but he had any second now at odds of 10-1 as his 3rd winner yesterday. So a decent day for the tipsters yesterday. I think it's fair to say Tuesday will probably go down as the worst day, because today, I don't want to say anything too soon, is looking a little bit more encouraging. Yesterday was
So I'd like to hear on.
It was a bit of a minefield yesterday going through these tips. There was such a mix in every race, but there's a bit more consensus across the races today, not least in the first. I'm not sure how much it's actually open to betting, given how short the odds are here in the favourite. It is Sir Eric. It's Joseph O'Brien's horse. It is the 130. It's the JCB Triumph Hurdle, and the latest odds I have here are 10-11 here. Mike Shorten, as the day progresses, pretty much all the tipsters this morning tipping Sir Eric in the JCB Triumph Hurdle. Johnny Ward actually was in studio here last week and tipped Sir Eric as well, so you might have got better odds on Sir Eric at that point. We'll move on to the 2, and the leading tip is for Whiskey Sour at odds of 11-2. That's a Willie Mullins horse. Ruby Walsh is going to ride it. Rob Wright in the Times, David Coughlin in the Irish Daily Star, Davy Russell, Peter O'Hare, Michael Verney and Matt Chapman tipping Whiskey Sour at odds of 11-2 in the Randox Health County Handicap Hurdle. We'll move on then to the 215. There's a couple of horses here that actually stick out. It's hard to separate them from the tips. And you've got Alaho and you've got Darren Ross as well. So this is the Albert Bartle Novices Hurdle. Alaho is at odds of 8-1. You've got Chris Cook in the Guardian, who's having a fantastic week, tipping him. Ed Chamberlain, the presenter of ITV's racing coverage, tipping Alaho. Johnny Burke of the Irish Daily Mail, Robbie Power in the Herald, and Patrick Mullins in the Irish Independent tipping Alaho. Mullins suggesting an each-way bet on this occasion. Darren Ross is just a tad longer, 9-1. You've got David Coughlin in the Irish Daily Star, Andy McNamara in the Irish Daily Star, Davy Russell, Tommy Lyons and Michael Verney as well, tipping Darren Ross. A couple of them also suggesting an each-way bet. That is a 250. It's the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle. We'll move on then to the big one, the Gold Cup at 3:30. It looks like obviously it goes without saying the Gold Cup is obviously a fantastic race, an unbelievable field, and there is one standout. Like Native River's getting a bit of money, or a bit of tips I should say. Clan des Obeaux is getting a few tips. Bells Hill is getting a lot of tips, but leading the way is the favourite, presenting Percy at odds of 4-1 for the Gold Cup. So you've got Brian Flanagan, David Coughlin, Davy Russell, Peter O'Hare, Charlie Brooks, Sam Turner, Niall Cronin, Katie Walsh, Patrick Mullins and Tony O'Hare, all tipping presenting Percy. Davy Russell himself is going to be on board presenting Percy for the Gold Cup. As I say, it's not really consensus because there's good cases to be made for Bells Hill at odds of 10-1. Ruby Walsh has mentioned it as part of an each-way double. Tommy Lyons in the Irish Examiner and Tom Pepper in the Sun have both said Bells Hill is their nap of the day. Right. And then you look at someone like Clan des Obeaux, Marcus Armitage in the Daily Telegraph has mentioned that as his nap of the day. So there's strong cases to be made for a lot of the horses, as tends to be the case in the big ones. We move on to the 4:10 then, which is the St James's Place Fox Hunter Challenge Cup Open Hunters Place. And the big tip here is for Uccello Conti. Jamie Codd is going to be on board that, the Gordon Elliott trained horse. And you've got David Coughlin, Charlie Brooks, Pat Keane, Darren Norris, Tommy Lyons, Niall Cronin, Aidan Coleman, Robbie Power, Michael Verney, Wayne Bailey and Paul Keeley, all tipping Uccello Conti at odds of 5-1. So a lot of love for Uccello Conti this afternoon. Two more races then to go through. The 4:50 is the Johnny Henderson Grand Annual Challenge Cup Handicap Chase, and Not Another Muddle at odds of 6-1 has just edged out the rest of them in terms of tips. And you've got Brian Flanagan, Darren Norris, Aidan Coleman, Robbie Power, Paul Keeley, Tom Seagal and Gerald Delamere in the Racing Post tipping Not Another Muddle, as I say, at odds of 6-1. Gary Moore trains the horse. Jamie Moore is going to be on board. Magic Saint is the favourite here at 9-2 at the moment, and that's got a bit of love for it as well across the newspapers this morning. So that's 9-2. Not Another Muddle though at 6-1, so potentially an each way horse there as well. I love an each way bet myself. Didn't do anything but each way.
I'm always each way.
And then finally, the 5:30 is the Martin Pipe Conditional Jockeys Handicap Hurdle, and most of the love is going for the favourite here, Dallas They Picked On. You've got Brian Flanagan, David Coughlin, Andy McNamara, Davy Russell, Jack Kennedy, Peter O'Hare, Charlie Brooks, Darren Norris, Michael Verney and Brian O'Connor, all tipping Dallas They Picked On. It's a Gordon Elliott horse. Dunnan Myler is going to be riding that one at odds of 10-3.
All right, we're going to have John Duggan on the line a little bit later on from Cheltenham to take you through that card as well. People, I'm sure, are waking up to the news this morning. An unspeakably dark day for New Zealand, an unspeakably dark day for Christchurch. I'm sure many of you will have seen it already this morning. If you haven't, it's a city that's known its dark days over the last few years. 4 people have been taken into custody this morning, a little earlier this morning, after 4 attacks at 2 mosques in the city. It's led to multiple fatalities, unfortunately. The latest estimate is up to 49, with several more still being treated for injuries in relation to these shooting. The New Zealand Prime Minister said this morning that it's not who we are. She said that it can only be described as a terrorist attack, and the city is still reeling, and the country is still reeling. And Ronan O'Gara, who we catch up at most Fridays this time, has made his way to Dunedin ahead of tomorrow's Super Rugby game. Ronan, not easy to put words on what's happened there at the minute. I'm sure it's the only thing on people's minds and mouths this morning.
Yeah, it is. It's been a really sad day. I think people are in shock, and I think I think the incident happened around 2 or 3 local time. We were assembling at the airport at 3 p.m, so we managed to get out, but I think now the airport is in lockdown for a lot of flights. So people, it's such a safe and peaceful country normally. I think some people, especially all the guys that have grown up here, are in deep shock.
Yeah, and it'll be hard, as I mentioned at the start, with the tragedies that city's gone through over the last few years, to, I suppose, return to some sort of sense of normality over the next little while. But that's what they face now. Yeah,
it's still extremely raw, I suppose, and it's we're gathering information as we go along. Not too sure whether the game will go ahead. I think the Chiefs and Hurricanes are playing as we speak, but I think the situation seems to be worsening, and it has obviously the massive earthquake in 2011, but I think what has happened today is off the charts altogether, and people are really struggling to get their head around it.
Yeah, as we all are, and as the reaction continues to come in for that as well, we'll keep an eye on it. It's just a grim story to begin the day with, Ronan, but we do want to talk about more trivial matters in that context, obviously in the context of everything that's upcoming at the weekend with the Six Nations, and to get your thoughts initially on what you made of this Irish team that's been named. I'm going to come back to Ronan actually on that. Just we need to just clear up his line there, so we'll do that and we'll come back to him in just a few minutes' time. You mentioned the ITV coverage. You mentioned Ed Chamberlain. Over the course of that piece, it's been I have absolutely eaten up the ITV coverage, I have to say. It's been really excellent. The Mick Fitzgerald Mike at the fence, it's, you know...
he's the guy who interviews the winners.
Yeah,
he's really a good broadcaster.
The jockey, Mick Fitzgerald, like one of the most famous jockeys that's ever existed. That guy.
Yeah.
It's like Ken on the course for how good it is. Ronan, you're back with us. What have you made of that Irish team?
Good team, yeah. Really good team. I think I like the way there's a lot of bite up front. I think smart selection, putting Byrne in against his own. Sorry, there's a lot of text coming through with the news.
No problem.
I like Byrne in the second row. I like Sean O'Brien in the back row. Just two mongrels, guys that can play both games. I think obviously Byrne knows the Welsh better than themselves, so nothing like a bit of luck and knowledge going into their own patch. And I think Sean O'Brien, I think Joe's played that one brilliantly, in the fact that he's probably tested his mental ability in terms of his hunger levels, that he is probably Shawnee wasn't too sure whether am I going to the World Cup, am I not, and then all of a sudden bang, here you go, show me what you got. And what a game to show it. And I suppose the beauty of having played with Sean is this is a kind of thing that will really excite him, and it'll be great to have a player come on him alone, not alone the match tomorrow, you know.
Yeah, it's almost perfectly set up for him in some regards to kind of put in a bit of a man of the match. Do you have a sense it's because he has been kind of written out of things over the last few weeks, and that's not from any utterances that have come from within the camp, but any sense from your end that it's kind of a bit of a make or break moment in the Ireland career of Sean O'Brien, at least in the context of the next 6 months?
Adrian, I think his key requirement is getting his body right. I think if Sean O'Brien has the capacity to train for a sustained period, his performance will look after himself. What has happened in the latter stages of his career, I suppose, he has picked up a few serious injuries, which has taken time away from the pitch, which means he's struggled to find rhythm. And even great players need to get on the pitch to find rhythm, and he's one of them. So his performance, what was the game he played in this Six Nations? He played against England.
He played a couple of them, I think, didn't he? He came on maybe Scotland and England.
Yeah, and it wasn't where he would have liked it. So he's been given a chance now to show, I suppose, his teammates and himself how good he can be, and there'll be a great, I suppose, feeling of satisfaction if he produces in the Millennium Stadium, because it's a great stadium to play in, as we know, especially when the crowd are against you.
I don't know if you've seen a lot of the reports from yesterday's press conferences, but Gatland will target Sexton and Murray. This is the Times Ireland edition this morning, tends to be very much the tone of it. He's saying that in the way that they targeted Youngs and Farrell when they played England, that's exact same thing they're going to do against Ireland this weekend. I'm not surprised to see that. I almost take it for granted that that's the way every team approaches every game, that you target the halfbacks.
Well, especially I suppose in the fact that it's hard to target Connor. It's very easy to target Johnny because of just the layout of the game. And number 10, he's going to be taking the ball to the line, while Connor is protected a little bit more in the fact that he's passing with forwards around him and he's clearing the ball away from rucks really quickly, while Johnny has to engage the defensive line as a big strength of his to create space or to take a half gap himself. So it'll be interesting what road to Pruitt gets, or would it be is it Navadi going at Johnny? So they have a really good back row as well. I think they'll obviously try and play with width and with pace, and I would say they probably play more of a kicking game than we might anticipate.
Right.
So,
but that's going to be. Ronan, do you think? Like, I mean, obviously with Carney at full back.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what they do. I think it would suit Ireland if they do close the roof. It'll obviously be extremely noisy, but I just think from top players, when you have a dry ball or closed conditions, you don't even have to think about catching and passing. If it's going to be a wet, wintry day, these are things that challenges you, and it can potentially add to the error rate. So, if it's closed, it's the same for both sides. If it's open, it's the same for both sides. I think there's been debate in the papers this morning at home about if it's closed and they're going to wet or water the pitch, which is an interesting one. I think Wales tried the last time, or is it going to be a closed pitch and dry ball? But I think maybe supporters don't realise is when it's closed and there's 80,000 in the stadium, it becomes a very the condensation factor, I think, is the what happens, and the ball becomes very, very slippy. But obviously at every line you have towel boys there, so the ball that you'll get from set piece will be dry, but there will be a grease on the ball. So I think it's going to be fascinating to I suppose the technical and tactical battle of how the two of them are going to shape up. I would say Ireland have an advantage at half back, most definitely. But then people in Wales, I think, like the idea of kind of Anscombe starting and Bigger finishing. So
who would you rather, if you were starting 10 for Ireland this weekend, who would you rather face?
I think Wales have done it right. I think if I was coaching them, I'd probably go the same way. I think Anscombe he's a probably underrated running game. He's deceptively quick.
Who would you rather face though?
Who would I like to play against? Is it, or who would I think?
Like who would, if you were starting for Ireland this weekend, who would you think you'd have the number of?
Both of them, Adrian. Sorry, I'm a loud laugh today. I think you know what you're going to get with Bigger. I think on a bad and good day he's probably 7, and he can get to 8.5, while Anscombe can probably go from a 5 to a 9. So
he's a gambler's choice.
That's the dilemma, you know.
What's the difference, the noticeable difference that you see, or what could we expect if there's a shift in that with 60 minutes on the clock?
I think Anscombe's capacity to get the back line, I think, into rhythm is better than Bigger's. His capacity to play in the game line is superior. Bigger's a very good passer, an unbelievable kick and chase merchant for himself, brilliant pressure player, and has big balls, basically, I think, and the fact that he can close out games brilliantly. And we've seen that for a number of years going back, I think, to even in 2012, was it, when the Ospreys beat Leinster in the RDS. So I think it's but it's not going to be decided there. I think it's going to be decided probably strangely by the back three. I think there will be errors. I think North is going to have a big game. I think Stockdale has to reply after last weekend. I didn't think he was anywhere near what we've seen of him in any other game. So it's not a place to be going to with any bit of doubts in your head, because you're so close to the edge of the pitch. You'll be getting jeered and hassled by the crowd, so he'll have to block out all that. Earls is in the form of his life for a sustained period of time, and obviously Rod Carney didn't play last weekend, but is extremely safe and dependable. But then we saw last weekend what Larmour can do in an attack sense, and it might be a case of not going out to see what Wales have. You're going to have to go for it tomorrow. I think I would be interested to see that. I think Ireland have to be the aggressor. If Ireland wait for Wales, they will be in trouble. If Ireland are the aggressor, which they have been bar, I suppose, the 3 games in England, Scotland and Italy, I didn't think they were the aggressor in those games, but against France, try after 2 minutes, after a great piece of vision and a skill execution from Larmour, putting the ball in the right place, forwards taking over try time. The pack looks good, but in fairness to Wales, I thought they were dead and buried against England, but they hung in there, they were on the ropes, and then used the crowd to a big advantage, and I think mentally suffocated the English.
How difficult is it to be that aggressor in the Principality Stadium, Ronan?
Yeah, it's obviously far more difficult than the Aviva, because people don't underestimate or appreciate what home crowd is. 50-50 decisions, giving the crowd something to shout about. It is, but how Ireland are so measly with giving away possession, it's probably they're the one team in the world that can do it. You look back at their peak performances, even the game they lost against New Zealand in the Aviva, in the last few minutes when they were 18-0 up, like their capacity to control the ball and I suppose implement their game is a lot better than any other team. What may potentially disrupt them would be their error rate. Their error rate against England was pass to ground, losing collisions, and trying to play a slow ball, as opposed to maybe accepting that you can't really move slow ball. You got to kick the ball. So they're the challenges, I think, when you're playing Wales away from home with a ferocious crowd on your back. But there's a great joy in, I think, turning that into your advantage if you are able to find a solution to those challenges.
What's your top 3 standings come close of business tomorrow evening?
I think England, Ireland, Wales. I think Ireland win.
Right.
I think England win with a bonus point.
We'd probably take that.
Yeah, I think I kind of put a bit of thought into it for the Examiner article this morning, going on about. I think this is a game, really. It's weird that in 80 minutes will define our Six Nations, but I have that feeling that that's what tomorrow represents for this group. I think obviously got derailed in the first game, struggled in games 2 and 3, very, very good in game 4, even though France weren't at the races at all. But this is the game, I think, that will give them massive momentum going into a World Cup, or may return the pessimism around the country.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Come here, I can't let you go. It's 10 years, not quite to the weekend actually, because there was a slight shift in the time schedule in 2009, but to that famous drop goal, 10 years.
Yeah, no, time flies. It's crazy, especially, I suppose, in the mood I'm in today. It's a great memory, a fantastic memory, and yeah, I can't believe it's 10 years. It was a great bunch of lads. It's everything you dream about as a young boy and more. And yeah, there's a lot of love on Twitter for that, and I'm very grateful for that. They're special days. What a dressing room going in there with a great bunch of boys, and why you play sport in Ireland, because I think Irish supporters are like no one else. They get behind their team, and that was obviously, we'd hit the post a few times to get over the line, especially Adrian, and it's a great memory to have.
I've always wanted to ask you, been at the game and see what happened at the final whistle and the joy that overcame most of the Irish players, but your first thought at the final whistle wasn't to actually celebrate with your teammates?
Was it not?
No, you went up to Stephen Jones and shook his hand after.
Oh yeah, I did actually, but I hope I gave a few high fives to a few of my boys on the way. But I get what being a kicker is and missing it. You know, you go back to, I think that's what experience tells you. I was in Twickenham for Munster, missing kicks that would have won a European Cup medal for guys I really cared about. but wasn't good enough to kick it over that day. And that haunts you as a kicker, but I got great advice from Woody at the time, kind of going, address the problem, don't sweep it under carpet, because it'll come back to bite you in a semi-final or final. And that's what real pressure is. It might hit you once a season, it might hit you once every 3 years, but address it, take it on. And ever since that, I think it was what made me that kind of massive failure in Twickenham. And I get the mindset of a kicker, and I get what goes into preparation. And earlier in the game, he had, I suppose, the capacity to kick a 50-metre, but it just shows what fatigue does to you. And he was short with the kick. So, I've been in Lions tours with Stephen. I've been competing with him for many a year, and it was a big day for us. But I think it was important that the values you learn in rugby, that you go up and you look him in the eye and say, hard luck, I know how that feels. And he took it well. And I swapped jerseys with him, was the natural thing to do. And 3 weeks later, my jersey arrived back over in the post, which even summed up what a good guy he is. It was great, obviously, to swap, but it was also nice to have your own jersey. I thought it was a great touch.
That's class.
Did you keep his jersey?
Of course I did.
He didn't want to see it, I'm sure.
Ronan, just one last thing.
Exactly.
It's interesting that you mentioned there, like addressing the problem after that Twickenham experience. Was there anything in particular that you addressed, or was there a particular part of your mindset that kind of came back to the surface in a successful manner against Wales in 2009?
I think if you want to be a really, really top-class kicker, I think there are many areas you have to address, but essentially you don't copy anyone. You get a technique that you know is bulletproof and that you can believe in, and it takes a while to do that because there's a lot of trial and error that goes into it. Then you reach a stage where after trying out, I realised I was a timing kicker as opposed to a power kicker, so I didn't need to switch on my core or fire up my quad or use that kind of language. For me, it was basically about putting all my trust in a follow through and getting my angle right. And then people forget adrenaline is a wonderful ingredient, and you get an extra 10 metres from adrenaline on game day. So it's every aspect. You have to be just, I suppose, so strong in your mind that you can see it before it's happening. And it took a long time to get there, mind you, but ever since that summer was brutal when you missed that kick, because what you want to do is you want to have the capacity to rectify it the following week. When you lose a European Cup final, you have 3 months off. So you can imagine how I was to live with for those 12 weeks, and also the doubts that you're crippled with. So going back to your question, I think you had to address everything, but the most important side was actually your skill set, but also your mindset to know that what works in the group stages or in latter stages Champion Cup matches may not be good enough at a 79th minute in a test game. So it was just, it's great to get the first one and then get another one and then get another one, and it got to a stage where I did it 2 weeks in a row, I think, with a drop goal for Munster against Northampton and Munster against Cast, and it's a fantastic feeling internally, I suppose. And I don't want to sound cocky saying that, obviously. I'm just talking you through the way I looked upon goal kicking was, or kicking for that matter, all of a sudden you're playing a kind of individual sport, and then you have to go back and play a team sport, and that's what it comes down to. The kicker has to put in serious work rate to get where he wants, the same as. But it's a skill that only applies to me, really, in the team that I'm starting and my replacement, or the kicker and the kicker's replacement, because the tight head props and the loose head props and the second rows and the back rows have a complete different emphasis on what skills they need to be good at. So it was just some key learnings in that regard, I think, at a young age, being able to address it and overcome it and then put it into practice at a level where a lot of people, and myself most importantly, got massive satisfaction out of.
Ronan, we didn't want to let it go, obviously, without asking you about 2009. You've been very good with your time. Look after yourself over the next few days and weeks. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. Good to talk. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Ronan O'Gara on the line there from Dunedin this morning, ahead of their Super Rugby game tomorrow, and it is New Zealand that's in deep sadness this morning. We brought you the news a little bit earlier that latest reports that 49 people now have been confirmed dead in the Christchurch terrorist attack, as described by the New Zealand Prime Minister this morning. Really tragic stuff. And Ronan O'Gara on the line there as well. Looking ahead to the weekend of Six Nations rugby, in so much as it is, and Alan Quinlan will be along to do a little bit more of that very shortly. It is 8:37 on this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with us here on OTB AM. Loads more coming up for you on the show. We're going to be talking more Six Nations with Quinny. Niall McGrath will be live on the line ahead of UFC London this weekend. John Duggan is coming your way from day 4 of the Cheltenham Festival, and a reminder too that you can always listen to the show every morning over on offtheball.com, and just like the breakfast sports radio show, you can listen there, minimise and go about your morning. If you're on the bike or on the bus or whatever it is you're up to, it's a very handy way to tune in. Darren Cleary is going to be in studio with us next with all the morning's sports headlines. But a reminder before we do that of our brilliant competition that's running all week in OTB AM, and it's all with thanks to SSE Airtricity to launch their new campaign. This is a new era. This is Generation Green. Today is the final day that you can enter and win. We're giving you the chance to win a pair of premium tickets to the Republic of Ireland's next home game against Georgia, to give away every day this week, and all 5 winners will also go into a draw for the overall prize a little bit later in the morning. It includes 4 premium tickets to the game, hotel stay for all in Dublin, including dinner, and the opportunity for one child to be a flag bearer at the game. So it's a pretty neat prize. And to win, we just want you to tell us about your favourite Irish goal. There's been lots of entrants for this coming in during the week. Who scored it? Why it was so good? You can tweet us, comment, let us know what you think. The winner is going to be announced at 9:30. Every morning, 9:30 this morning, we'll let you know about all of that. But before we go any further, let you know the Gaelic Football Show is live and off the ball every Wednesday from 12:30 in the company of Shane Stapleton and friends, including Owen Sheehan and Tommy Rooney of this parish. This week they had the Leitrim star Emlyn Mulligan on. It's hard to believe that the 2019 Division 4 final will be the first time that he'll play in Croke Park. A really incredible stat. And the lads got talking about the merits of a tiered championship system in Gaelic football.
Why aren't there more players who are outside of the top 6, 7, 8 counties? Like, why aren't there more players who are behind and pushing for restructuring of these championships? Like, why don't we have it as...
seen as weak, though, if you're, you don't believe in yourself. Like, it comes back to that.
Bring it to a club level. Like, winning a Junior All-Ireland or an Intermediate All-Ireland is exactly the same. It means just as much to winning a Senior All-Ireland, and it does exactly the same for the parish, the club, the county. So, like, is it a matter of getting everyone to just believe that we can just actually be really simple here and just make it a club, replicate the club structure, because it works so well?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you need, the commitment we're given at the minute, you need something realistic that you can aim for and to achieve, and the league is that. And we'll say that at the start of every league is our championship, and it is our championship. Again, obviously you have to regroup then again after the league and focus on championship, but the realistic chances are of winning a Connacht, they are slim. Obviously you have a chance, everyone has a chance, and the old cliche is 15 on 15, but there's a lot more to it than that, like, you know. And I suppose I speak up about it, and as Shane says there, like, people then, oh, you're nearly showing a sign of weakness if you don't say, oh, I can win that. But you have to be realistic, like, you know. And I suppose I'm around long enough to be realistic about it, whereas younger players mightn't want to say that, because then it might come back to management and say, oh, this fella doesn't want to be here, you know what I mean? And people can take it wherever they have, but every time I put on Leitrim jersey, or every time I go out to mark a fella, whether he's, I know I've been lucky enough, I've played with college teams, and I've played in provincial, I've played with the best players in the country, and that's probably made me believe in my own ability as such. But I know myself, I can beat that man in marking, and like, that will progress through Leitrim, but like, this is only step 1 of it, like, you know. And we need to keep now and maintain Division 3 next year, again progress into consistent, then be consistent in Connacht. But at the minute there's still a huge level there for ourselves in Sligo, especially to bridge, like, you know.
Yeah, good stuff there from Tommy and Emlyn Mulligan on the show this week. And check out that full piece up on offtheball.com, as it is every week, or up on our YouTube channel as well. Darren Cleary, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian.
YouTube's a light on. Ronan McGrath was first in this morning. Let me get my words in order here.
Please do.
Friday morning, and the own Adrian sniping at each other's show.
Well, there's plenty to snipe at.
Followed hot on the heels by Paul Hayes, who says, gotta love Owen and Adrian sniping at each other. Yeah, well, consider you sniped. Devo stating says, Adrian and Owen taking subtle strips off each other is the highlight of my Friday morning.
There's definitely kind of like a
It's not that subtle with that many people noticing.
Well, there's definitely a little cohort of people who are like, this is clearly not a thing, but they've decided it's a thing. Because, you know, we're best buds, Adrian.
We are. We're both heading down to the Kerry Mayo game this weekend.
Absolutely not.
Oh, are we not?
Well, you can come along if you want. Like, I mean,
can I?
You would get eaten alive by the Kerry Mafia.
Could I pretend to be a Kerry man?
Darren just says he loves when horses are described with a good temperament. You don't have the temperament required to last on a terrace on a Saturday night.
Are we not kindred spirits? Are we not brothers of sorts?
You wouldn't last 2 seconds on a National League terrace on a Saturday night, Adrian, in the month of March.
Are we not brothers? Are we not like intrinsically entwined together?
Why?
Paddy O'Shea.
God, please.
Does that not make us brethren?
Please just.
No?
Like the Paddy O'Shea line from you, like that you put him on your Westmeath Mount Rushmore, is actually an embarrassment for you.
Why?
It's just coming to our county, seeing our beautiful sights and stealing our great GAA people is all.
Have you been to Westmeath?
Good for. I've been to Athlone, yeah.
What have you been doing at Athlone?
We can't quite remember.
I can't quite make up an excuse off the top of my head.
It's quite a nondescript place.
Whoa!
This is almost,
this is just not true.
I stayed in Athlone actually. I just have to remember. Yeah.
Where did you stay?
It's the Hudson Bay in
Athlone. Beautiful.
Yeah, lovely.
How would you say, having stayed in Hudson Bay, that Athlone is a nondescript place?
Well,
that's just not true.
I guess
you're from the arse end of nowhere in an admittedly beautiful county. But Fireys is, what I understand, the arse end of nowhere. I'm reliably informed from local sources.
Get your pitchforks ready, neighbours.
And also, are you saying that there's nobody
neighbours can't watch the show? They don't have broadband.
Pound it out. You're leaving me hanging there for too long.
Oh my God, he said pound it out.
That's embarrassing lingo. Worse than the horse lingo.
We're back to the Ryder Cup again, really, aren't we? That's where we're at. That's, just untrue and largely insulting. And also, are you suggesting that there's no members of the Kerry Mafia who are not actually from Kerry but pretend to be from Kerry?
Oh, that was really pointed. That's below the belt.
No, everybody.
Again, sources tell me that there are.
Everybody's got true Kerry blood. Well, you can't blame people to want to be from Kerry.
Yeah.
I'm sure Darren, deep down, when he was growing up as a kid watching a failing county, wanted to be from Kerry. Now he's one of us. Now he knows what winning feels like. You'll get there once. You'll get there eventually, Adrian. You know?
I won't. Is the reality, and I'm absolutely fine with that.
It's so bad for Adrian, he can't even put any Westmeath people on his Mount Rushmore.
Well,
there's loads of them, Darren. Loads of them.
It's Desi Dolan, and that's the end of it.
Just one of them is an honorary. That's all. I can't even remember who the other ones were.
Robbie Henshaw.
Oh yeah, Robbie Henshaw. Yeah. Was Niall Horan on there?
Niall Horan, and you had John Aldridge as well.
John Aldridge.
Get a shout.
5 people today. That was great. Well done, me.
John Aldridge, Brezzy, Paddy O'Shea.
No, Brezzy wasn't on it.
And
why wasn't
Robbie
Brezzy
Henshaw.
on it? Brezzy has a sporting background, he has a musical background.
I mean, loads of people with recommendations as to why they could be on there, but it's the Mount Rushmore, Darren. It's not for anybody. What have you got for us? You can start off with racing.
Yeah, the Gold Cup, the big draw at Cheltenham today. One of the most sought-after titles in racing up for grabs on the final day of the 2019 festival. The Colin Tizard trained Native River bidding to become the first horse since Best Made in 2004 to retain the famous trophy. Presenting Percy will likely go off as the favourite. The Ireland head coach Joe Schmidt says their recent record against Wales is not cause for concern and will mean nothing this weekend. Schmidt has yet to register a Six Nations victory against Wales away in Cardiff. The sides go head-to-head this weekend, where a win for the Welsh would seal a Grand Slam. Ireland still harbour some hopes, but they need a favour from Scotland to beat England and then end their winless streak in Cardiff. Schmidt knows history will not matter in this game.
They're different teams, different times, and in both of them, they were incredibly fine margins. Both times, I felt we played relatively well, and we certainly had more line breaks, we had more opportunities, but they're very hard to capitalise on. They are incredibly good at slowing your ball down once you get into their danger zone. You saw last week against Scotland. Scotland had a plethora of opportunity, but only converted one try. And so it is difficult to score against them, particularly at home. Obviously, last year we managed to score 5 tries against them. So it's not a case of not being capable of doing it, but they do grow another leg in Principality Stadium, and that's going to be a challenge for us.
Now, the Republic of Ireland manager Mick McCarthy is confident that he has goals in his squad. He'll be forced to plan without Ronan Curtis, who has lost 80% of one of his fingers after a freak accident. Alan Brown also out injured for the Euro 2020 qualifiers with Gibraltar and Georgia. Luton Town striker James Collins, scorer of 20 goals in all competitions this season, had made the final squad. Shane Long, Sean Maguire and David McGoldrick also in the mix, and McCarthy is confident there's enough firepower in that squad. He's been speaking to Irish Football Fan TV.
Ronan's a wide left. He's a left of a three plays for Portsmouth. I know he's been a striker, but he's been scoring goals and he looks, he's missing out now. I think he's got 8 goals this year.
Yeah, he's been in fantastic form.
Yeah, and I've lost Alan Brown, who scored 12 goals, and I've been at pains to keep mentioning them. When asked by the journalists, who's going to score your goals? Well, Alan Brown's got 12 and Ronan's got 8. Well, there's 20 of them gone already. But, still got Sean Maguire, we've still got David McGoldrick, and Conor Horan got a couple there at the weekend. Callum O'Dowd has scored a few, and we can always rely on the defenders to go for a free kick in a corner, and Big Shane's always good for a goal.
Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang struck twice for Arsenal to help them secure their place in the next stage of the Europa League, through to the quarter-finals now, after the Gunners came from behind to win the tie 4-3 on aggregate. A 3-0 victory over Rennes last night secured that victory. Chelsea cruised to victory in their last 16 encounter with Dynamo Kiev. The Blues won 5-0 on the night in Ukraine, 8-0 winners overall on aggregate. Here at home, Shamrock Rovers hope to extend their lead at the top of the SSE Electricity League table. The Hoops welcome Sligo Rovers to the Tallaght Stadium this evening. They have a 2-point cushion, having played one game more than second place Bows. The Gypsies hope to continue their unbeaten start when they meet Cork City at Turner's Cross. Keats alongside have 3 wins and 2 draws from their first 5 games, and the Bows boss is eager to keep that run going, but knows they face a tough test from an improving Cork side.
Well, we're pleased with the start, but we're 5 games into the season, so we've drawn the last 2 games. We had a difficult game down in Cork and away to Dundalk in the next 2 weeks, so that will really give us an indication of where we're at after those 2 games. Well, we want to try and go down and look at Cork and get something out of the game. We'll have confidence going into that game. Down there, we know it'll be tough. Cork are still a good side despite their indifferent start to the season. Obviously, they did a good win up in Ballybuffet on Friday, so it's going to be very, very tough down there. But we have to look at that and try and get something out of the game if we possibly can to keep this little run that we're on going.
Does the Bows game come into your new sporting weekend? You being a newly formed Bows fan, Owen?
Not going to work into the circuit this weekend somehow.
Have you been to any game bar the first game of the season?
I will be, yeah.
No, have you?
I will be going to another one.
No, the question is, have you been?
I will be going to another game.
So you haven't been?
No.
And you didn't go to the game that was on your way home 2 weeks ago? You literally...
It wasn't on my way home, and it was in Waterford.
Your direct flight path.
Do you understand how geography works?
Direct flight path.
South East and South West are different things.
You managed to take a circuitous route home to avoid going to...
No, I went straight home instead of taking a stupid route home.
That is unbelievable.
Can I make a pitch to you this evening? Are you busy this evening? Any plans?
Relatively busy, yeah.
Okay. So
what was
relatively busy?
What was the pitch going to be?
Like Shelburne are playing this evening at home in Talca Park.
I'm going home.
Every time, Adrian, we invite him to something, he's going home. Have you noticed?
Well, I generally try not to invite him to anything, but...
That's why he snipes at you on Fridays.
He gave me an invite earlier on to the Mayo-Kerry game and then swiftly sort of withdrew with the other hand.
Well, you would probably dampen the spirits more than the rain is going to dampen things.
Typical Kerry man, Indian giver. The champions Dundalk travel to Brandywell to face Derry City. Waterford host St Pat's Athletic, and it's UCD against Finn Harps at Belfield. Well, finally to golf, Rory McIlroy is in the mix at the Players' Championship. The Ulsterman carded a 5-under round of 67. Tommy Fleetwood and Keegan Bradley tied for top spot on 7-under. McIlroy pleased with his bogey-free round, and he feels the course is set up for scoring.
The fairways are playing so much wider. You can be so much more aggressive off the tee. It's a different golf course. It's a different setup. The ball's stopping, at least within 10 yards of where it's landing. A little bit more my style. I feel very comfortable here. I'd say over the past few years, I've become more comfortable with it. But even, around the greens, it's easier. You're not having to guess out of the Bermuda rough. If you miss a fairway, it's easier. There's not much rough. You go into pine needles. You can still get some spin and control on your ball. So it lends itself to aggressive play, which I like.
Darren, thanks, mate. Were you in the parade, watching a parade?
I have no real interest in parades, Adrian.
Owen?
It's very harsh. Sure, I said I'm going to Cork Park on Sunday.
But would you not take in a parade somewhere?
God, is
Waterford, it would be anyway back. Swipe in there.
Like, are you going to a parade, Adrian?
Definitely, yeah.
Which one?
Haven't decided which one yet, yeah.
Right, what are the options?
Dublin, which is unlikely, or somewhere near Dublin.
You have to go to a parade. You have kids.
Well, that's only the only consideration, and the eldest one is just about of an age where he'd be mildly entertained for about a half an hour, so that's the...
Then time to go.
Why, you're just going to leave them at home and go on your own?
Yeah, exactly. Watch the TV, it'll be grand. Thanks, Darren. Alan Quinlan in the studio. Next, here in OTBAM, we continue our build-up to Wales against Ireland in the final weekend of Six Nations games this weekend. First of all, let's hear the thoughts of Andy Lee on Katie Taylor's fight in Philly this weekend.
And a lot, like you can see it with Michael Conlon, a lot of boxers, or male or female now, who come out of the amateurs who are really, really good, and they're having these kind of built-in fights, fighting opponents who are way below them in terms of skill and ability. That's what they'll be facing a lot of the time, and it's a different challenge about it's like solving a puzzle and piecing them apart and finding the holes and beating them. And there are different ways to do it. With Katie, like, I've watched Volante, and she's gonna offer no threat at all, really. She's without saying that she's a world champion, it's hard to believe, but she's quite poor, and from now at this stage in Katie's career, and with the fights that are potentially going to happen this year with Poon Son, with Brockhouse or Serrano, I would like to see more of an adaptation to the professional game, more of a kind of a stylistic kind of a spitefulness. And I know she's kind of like, for her, it's 2-minute rounds, so it's hard. And she set out this, she wants the fights to be entertaining, so she's always willing to take punches, which the crowd like. So it's not like a one-sided ball, and they want to. So, but for me, I've seen enough of that now. I've seen enough of having hard fights. I want to see a piecing together, strategically planning, methodically planning a fight, thinking 3 or 4 rounds ahead, investing early, and not being from moment to moment where she's. It's not in a panic, but where she's kind of reacting to what's happened, kind of strategically planning the fight out and taking her opponent apart and stopping him. I would like to see that now, start to have those finishes, and that's the next challenge for her. That's what I see anyway. She's had these couple of years of kind of getting used to the professional game, kind of shedding her amateur style if she can, which is hard because she's so ingrained in it, and it's still only 2-minute rounds, so in some ways her amateur style kind of suits the professional game. She's just doing it over a longer duration, but I would like to see her now start to take opponents apart and start to get stoppages. If not knockouts, definitely stoppages.
Andy Lee there on Off the Brawl. Check out the full piece up on offtheball.com, or you get it on our YouTube channel as well. Quinny, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Gavin McLaughlin's been in touch on our What's the Best Ireland game, the Ireland goal and why. Got to be Gary Breen against Saudi Arabia at the 2002 World Cup. Got us out of the group and nearly got him and moved to Barcelona. Hashtag OTB AM.
Barcelona, Inter Milan, was it?
It was Inter Milan, I think, wasn't it? Yeah. It was the knee injuries that I think came a cropper. He sort of hiked it. It was like a fairly classic centre-halves goal where he sort of beautiful goal if you just avoided the fact that he kind of fell in his arse as he was...
Yeah. We weren't, there was a right Irish snobbery of Saudi Arabia at that particular moment because we weren't allowed to watch that game in school. We weren't allowed to watch Germany, obviously. Cameroon was on a Saturday.
Jesus.
And Spain was on a Saturday, but Saudi Arabia, no, didn't get to see that one.
We've just been discussing what the plans are for the weekend. In terms of the St Patrick's Day parade, you must have done sort of Grand Master, Grand Marshal, parade leader at some point down the track, did you?
I did it in Tipperary Town.
Did you, yeah?
5 or 6 years
Did they give you an old shtick with you, or what was the...
no, I just sat into the back of a convertible Beetle.
Bit of this sort of action as you went along.
It was embarrassing, to be honest. I was kind of trying to, oh no, what have I let myself in for? It was nice. The parade is lovely there, and I love seeing everyone make the effort for it. But I didn't want to be Grand Marshal. But there's actually a very up and coming, outstanding Tipperary man playing for the Ireland under-20s tonight at full back, and he's the Grand Marshal on Sunday, Jake Flannery.
Right.
So he's been brilliant and the under-20s, of course, they're going for that Grand Slam tonight. So he's the next Tipperary superstar.
When did you do it?
I was...
Were you still playing, like?
I did it one time when I was playing, and a couple of years ago when I was retired, and so it's...
Not too many have done it twice, I'd say.
No.
It must have been sort of somebody late withdrawal.
Stuck, yeah. Late call-up.
Right. Wales-Ireland this weekend. We've been talking to Ronan O'Gara about it a little bit earlier on, and Talking about Sean O'Brien, I was sort of putting it to him if it was a bit of a make or break moment for him. He didn't really feel it's quite that, but at the same time it is a pivotal moment, isn't it, in the career, in the context of where he's going next season.
I think so. I think he's so popular, everybody'd love to see him. He's an incredibly hard, resilient fella, you know. I played against him towards the end of my career and I was kind of shocked at how, not shocked, but a little bit taken aback at the start of how tough this guy is. Like, he's the type of fella you want in your corner that's not really daunted by what's ahead, you know. He's a real kind of a warrior spirit.
Is he a different player now than he was? Like, he won the European Player of the Year in 2011 and he had a style of a game about him, but he's been disrupted significantly, obviously, over the last few years. Like, what sort of a player is he now?
Well, it's hard to put an exact gauge in that because of all the injuries in the last number of years.
Yeah.
I thought he was back to his best in 2017 on the lines. He was superb. His moments in the game, his physicality. Any back row, they've got to cover ground around the field and look sharp and look menacing, if you like, even without the ball. And you kind of see that energy and that their involvements, their tackles, their presence in general. And Shawnee always had a big presence on the field, and he was always someone that the opposition were very, very wary of, with the ball in hand and without the ball, because he was such a threat at the breakdown as well. And he's the type of fellow who just keep turning up time and time again. So what we've seen from him since he's come back this time is maybe not looking as sharp and as imposing, but sometimes in sport and in life you look for characters, and you look down into someone's kind of soul and say, well, the character doesn't change, the legs may change a little bit, and is there a performance in them? Can they come out fighting? And I just think he's the type of fella who'll say, okay, there's been a lot of people question me, and that's just the nature of high performance sport, that, you know, there's so many other guys, and if you underperform at any stage, you'll be under pressure. And I just think I just sense that there's something's good is going to happen out of this for Sean O'Brien. I hope I'm right, because for obvious reasons I like him. I think he's a great player. It doesn't necessarily mean just because you have sentiment involved and you think, oh God, he's a great player, that he's going to perform. 2 years ago, we were bullied in the back row. Stander, O'Mahony, Sean O'Brien, all these guys were stopped at source. Wales have tried to do the same. I just love to see Sean O'Brien smashing a couple of fellas in the game and getting himself that kind of feel-good factor back within himself. Obviously, he's got a track around the field, and there's going to be a lot of work. This game is going to be very high intensity. Wales are very, very fit. And Warren Gatland has no problem continuously saying how fit they are. And I think that's a psychological thing as well. He's not alone telling the world, but he's telling his players, this is what I believe, this is the training you've done. And so Ireland are going to have to, we're a fit side as well, and we've shown that. So that's the one question mark, can he keep up with the tempo and the pace? But you put someone down that kind of, you go into the trenches, and Sean O'Brien is a fella you'd bring with you. So
you said we were bullied a couple of years ago. How do Wales try and do that again, and how do Ireland try and counteract that?
Well, they smash Ireland, and we were passive a little bit, and a little bit naive with some of our carries, where they were kind of one-out runners, and we just need to vary that. You hear top-level sportsmen talking a lot about the emotional kind of high that you need to get. There is absolutely no trigger or switch to be pressed tomorrow for either side. So the emotion is going to be through the roof. I think Ireland need to get their emotion above Wales a little bit, which is going to be difficult when you're away from home and given what they're going for. They just need to make a pact amongst themselves that it's not going to happen. Sometimes it's a bit of old school. We're not going to be intimidated and bullied and physically out-muscled. So it means just kind of going in with at 110% every single time. So it happened probably 2000, and not so much in 15, because I think Ireland would look at that and their inaccuracies and a bit of frustration. But when your halfbacks are getting knocked around the place like they were 2 years ago, Sexton and Murray, that doesn't mean that they're not going to go hard at them again. They will. But I think Ireland need to set the tone, and I think the Ireland forwards need to to lay down a marker early on and just not be intimidated. And
did you ever like have those conversations with your teammates about laying down that marker early in a game?
Absolutely. Like a game like this, I just love to be in the dressing room and listen to what's being said, because that's the stuff that kind of I miss the most. That looking around the dressing room, feeling that we're going to battle here and we're not going to take a bloody step backwards. And you hear guys inspiring and talking and literally being up for the fight. Now, the Welsh dressing room will be the same. What they're intrigued, what they're going to be saying is, these Ireland so-and-sos are coming to try and knock us off our perch and take away our Grand Slam, and we're going to do X, Y and Z, and we got to front up and we got to be physical and we got to knock them backwards. Loads of bad language is in that as well. So both sides are going to be up for it, but I genuinely would love to be involved. These are the kind of games that you'd miss the most as a sports person, because it's kind of backs to the wall scenario.
And given what's on the line, Quinny, does it change the dynamic of the game in some ways? Like if they'd met in round 3, is tomorrow, given everything that's on the line, given it's the end of the Six Nations, given the context of the World Cup and all that stuff, is there a freedom that comes with it being the end of the line in terms of Six Nations and everything been on the line?
A little bit, yeah, because we've seen in the history of the Six Nations, we've seen a lot of drama in it at the final day. So Wales will, people have said a lot that they're very defensive, and they are, and Sean Edwards, incredible character and someone who's incredible success in rugby union, he will, that's obviously a big strength, but that doesn't mean that Wales are not a good side with the ball as well. There's some very, very dangerous players, and if George North gets the ball, Josh Adams, Liam Williams has been superb throughout the Six Nations. So they have a brilliant back 3, Davies and Hadley Parks as well. I think Anscombe, in turn, we can put a bit of pressure on him. Bigger has come off the bench really well for Wales throughout the Six Nations. And their back row is really good. Moriarty's works incredibly hard. So
one last point on that back row. So the ultimate question here is, would you swap any of their players into our back row?
Well, I didn't answer the first part of the question, but it being different, I think both sides there's no second chances here. You have to throw caution to the wind. You're not trying to manage your way through a game here. Ireland have got to go for it in a sense, so that creates a little bit of freedom. Wales, if they sit back and try and contain Ireland, it could be dangerous. They've got to play as well. That's why the last day is exciting. The back row, I think Tipuric is someone who I'm a massive fan of, and he's just so fit and covers so much ground that he would come into an Ireland back row.
You'd swap him in for O'Brien?
No.
If you were picking
given where Sean O'Brien is coming from. So he's on the back foot, so he's got to kind of prove and take on Tipuric. He got picked ahead of him 2 years ago for the Lions, but it's different times now. I wouldn't swap O'Mahony or Stander at the moment, because I think, and Navidi's been very, very impressive, to be fair. He's an open side, plays with Cardiff Blues. He's been brilliant for him. And Ross Moriarty is one of those players, again, he's that Sean O'Brien character. He's as tough as nails. He's someone that, is not afraid to make the hard yards, incredibly hard working, and he's tough as well. So, but I think Stander is probably, for me, when he's on song, he's the best number 8 in the Six Nations, and that's a tall, big statement given Billy Vunipola's quality. I just think his overall involvements are continuously high, time after time after time. But we're splitting hairs with some of these, you know what I mean? I take the Welsh guys are tough, and they're very good back row as well. Neil Tracy did his Tide 5 this week that I'm sure some of our viewers have seen up on offtheball.com. One of the things that kind of stood out to me was it stood out because it was something that I heard before. We have to risk in a backlash there, because I remember Mike Tyndall was a question we asked him, was it about how many English players would get into the
to be fair, he went through the team and he said every Irish player.
We'll hear this next week now. Quinlan said O'Brien or Stander and O'Mahony.
Oh no, I think you've been complimentary. You should have been complimentary.
I'm very complimentary, because they're rightly
You're not thinking about that when you're in Cheltenham. Go out of that. You're not. Neil was talking about the cuteness, the sort of cleverness, the things that we'd be critical of other teams maybe about in some ways. He spoke about the Rory Best try last week where there was kind of a peel off the back and there was a decoy carrier. I think Standard was the decoy carrier and was pretending that he was going to take the ball, and ultimately there was a bit of drama going on that deceived the French defence in so much as you could call them that, and Best sort of snuck the ball in and took it around. Is this something that a lot of other teams are at, or are we smarter, cleverer, a bit of the old cuteness about us in a way that maybe some other international teams aren't?
I think in if you look at Joe Schmidt's coaching and his teams that he's coached over the years, Claremont, Leinster, Ireland, all those teams have come up with kind of new plays or new moves that we kind of haven't seen. So he's continuously always trying to find ways of breaking down the opposition of first or second phase, and if it works, brilliant. The criticism has probably been sometimes that we're maybe we're a little bit structured at times when the game opens up, and that players, sometimes if someone makes a line break, that there's someone not on his shoulder because they maybe the anticipation isn't as good. And that's not Joe's fault. Essentially, it's probably the player mentality as well, and their anticipation needs to be better at times. And there's very few. It's hard to criticise, given what happened in 2018. Any way we played in 2018, I think we were shocked a little bit this year. Very small margins around accuracy, and it came from a lot of pressure, the poor performances. But I think his innovation around his attack and those kind of strike moves has been ahead of everybody else. I think obviously we used to all, as players, we used to always look at New Zealand, what they try and the way they try and attack, and you want to try, and if you have a good line out, Adrian, you want to try and test the offence with some bit of sometimes just truck it up with your 12. Giving you, and
we're good at that too, aren't we? I mean,
but a lot of the times we seem to we can find some bit of a move. Now it doesn't always come off, but he's probably profited from that, and Ireland have most from any teams that I've seen.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's any more development on that front this week, given the one of those moves, and you score a try, a 7-pointer is a massive score in a very tight game like this, but. We'll see. Wales they defend very well, but there is opportunities, I think, sometimes because they're so flat and they get off the line so quickly that there maybe is a little bit of space in behind. I think Ireland have to be patient tomorrow, because if we overplay in our own half, Wales will love that. They'll want to force mistakes. But I wouldn't suggest Ireland should change and just start kicking the leather off the ball, but just at times they've got to be a little bit practical and pragmatic and play in the opposition in half. And if Ireland could turn the sort of pressure that has helped Wales throughout this championship back on them, well then, they can be the ones asking the questions. But Wales are quite good at forcing mistakes and errors, and they did that against Wales, where they kind of withstood a lot of pressure given, particularly in that first half. If you look at that English-Wales game, you think England are going to win this comfortably. They're not comfortably, but they're a winning team here in the first half. And Wales they withstood all this pressure and then just wore them down, with their fitness. Just on Schmidt, one last point on him. It's obviously the last time that Gatlin and Schmidt are going to coach their respective teams in their current guises for the Six Nations. Which, if you had a team going into the World Cup final, which one of those would you rather have as head coach?
Well, they've both achieved phenomenal things in their coaching tenures. Gatlin's going for a third Grand Slam. He's coached a number of Lions tours, 3 Lions tours. Won a series in Australia. Halved the series in New Zealand. He's achieved a lot, to be fair, but. Warren Gatlin was coach when I was with Ireland for a while, and that was a very long time ago for sure. And I think one thing about Warren Gatlin is he finds a way, and he's very he's definitely not as hands-on as Joe. He probably is a little bit more with the forwards and scrum and maul and stuff like that. He gets involved in that stuff, but he's more of an observer, and he kind of likes to get to to psychologically work with the team a lot, and that's probably his biggest strength. And he's good coaches around him, and he's surrounded himself with good coaches, so he finds a way to win matches. On the other hand, Joe's record is phenomenal as well, you know, with Clermont, and then with Leinster and with Ireland. He's won 2 championships and a Grand Slam, so he's won three titles in the last number of years, more recent than Warren Gatland. So it's hard to separate them. I think which one would I probably settle into a bit more? I think Joe would probably keep me in his Irish squad for probably a week and kick me out the door because of the technical side of it and me adhering to game plans. And Gatty would probably keep me a bit longer maybe. But I think Joe Schmidt, given that's an incredibly difficult question, but I think given I'm Irish and what Joe's done in recent times, beating New Zealand twice, it was 111 years, you know, so Joe has brought Irish rugby to an incredible level and a high standard, and so yeah, I'd have to say Joe Schmidt.
Correct answer, Quinny. Well done.
How many points do I get for that?
Tadhg Byrne, obviously, we want to touch on as well, and it's amazing how much conversation we tend to have about Tadhg Byrne, who doesn't tend to get used a huge amount, obviously, in an Irish context anyway. It's a bit of kind of master stroke meets amazing opportunity, given that some of the other second rows aren't fit, obviously, but what an opportunity for him this weekend.
Yeah, and it might fall into place for him and for Ireland, because he's a brilliant player. He knows these Welsh guys pretty well. Not that that'll have any huge significance. I think he'll bring a huge amount of energy. He'll bring a little bit of X factor where sometimes, and we talk about, you know, the strength of that Welsh defence, that he has an ability to find a little pocket and little gaps out of nowhere where he just, someone's just about to pass and he just picks a line, and he's really good at that. His support play is good, so he'll be needed because the game is going to be frantic. It's going to be all over. There's going to be multi-phase, and he's got to make sure he's good at all that stuff. He's got to make sure that he does the nitty-gritty stuff up front as well. Adam Baird and Alan Wynne-Jones are 2 big lumps of second rows, and he's got to make sure that he's working hard with his tight 5 with the front 3, the front row as well, scrum, line out as well. But I think, you know, it could be a real opportunity for him, and he's someone who could stand out and have a phenomenal impact in this game. Your final standings can close business tomorrow? It's kind of on the fence, and my head is saying Wales, because I'm trying to figure out, there's a lot of brilliant players there, and I think it's hard to kind of change that picture and shift that momentum that they have. But another part of me then thinks that this Ireland side, okay, they've got to turn on an 8 or 9 out of 10 performance tomorrow. I think they were probably 7.5 against France, maybe 8, 9 on occasions in the first half, but I mean over the 80 minutes. And I'd love the challenge of it, you know. That doesn't mean that this team are going to go and play well, but I just have a sense that given what happened 2 years ago where they were physically manhandled a little bit, and even at that, we gave away a late try when Robbie Henshaw lost the ball and North kind of goes in under the post. We nearly scored. There was a try where, I think, was it Fergus McFadden at the breakdown where it was disallowed for a bit of blocking. So we could have won that game as well. So there won't be a lot in this, Adrian, but I think head is saying Wales, but my heart is saying Ireland. So what's the table tomorrow evening? What are you saying? Team number 1 are? Team number 1, England. Team number 2? Ireland. And team number 3 are Wales, right? Wales, yeah.
Same as ROG. It's not like
the Welsh.
It's likely. I think that's. I mean,
the Welsh will love this, and they're great at kind of plucking out the headlines and making headlines themselves. But
let them look after
there's very little in it, and you know, it's. I just have this feeling, so I'm going with the feeling.
Good.
I'm not going with the head this time because there's not much in there. People would say.
Would you give even Ireland a 5% chance of winning the championship?
No, listen, it's not going to be that perfect finish.
No, it's not.
I think grind out a result in Wales. And
maybe in Murrayfield you could have.
Yeah, in Murrayfield it'd be different, but no, England are too good. Scotland have been dreadful.
The other big news of the week that I'm sure you were delighted about, and we definitely want to get your thoughts about, are the Leinster coaching staff signing up for another couple of years. You were delighted with that, I'm sure.
It's massive for them. I think obviously Andy Farrell was being there was talks that he'd be trying to get Stuart Lancaster with him, but
it's not clear about the duration of his contract. It's 2 years for Leo Cullen, but we're not sure about Lancaster. It doesn't say. Hasn't been said yet.
Yeah, but I think for either way, getting both of them signed up and having that stability is massive for them.
All right, so
happy?
Oh, delighted. Sure, it's a perfect scenario. You wouldn't want anything else.
Contract extension for Connacht. your team.
Get out of town. Get out of town. Quinny, thanks a million. Enjoy your weekend of rugby. Looking forward to it, I have to say. So we'll keep an eye on all of that right across off the ball over the course of the weekend as well. But in the meantime, we're going to turn our attention to racing, and it's back to Cheltenham we go. It's day 4. John Duggan, come on in.
Adrian, Quinny, Owen, how are we all doing?
Flying it, John. Yeah. How's your week been so far?
My broadcasting has been exceptional as always. The tipping has been a 16% profit so far. So I've been given 1,500 and I've come back with 1,740 so far. And hopefully with the 500 I've got today, I can add to the charity bank and maybe finish ahead rather than behind this week. It's been a tricky week. It always is at Cheltenham. It's hard to find winners. But if you're a favourite backer, you would have done well probably the last day and a half. So, but I'm not that kind of punter. I'm an each-way punter, and it's we have to wait and see what happens today.
And for Johnny come lately, he's like myself and Owen here. It's definitely all about the Prestbury Cup. It's the thing that we're interested in. I know not everybody necessarily sort of buys into it. Are you into it? No, you
not at all.
Well, you're into it, John. I'm pretty sure I heard you say that on the radio during the week.
Yeah, I'm into it. I remember back in the 80s when Ireland didn't have much sporting success. We didn't have a soccer team that was on the map at all. Our rugby team was inconsistent, and Don Run winning the Gold Cup in 1986 was a really big thing for the country's sport. Remember the race being replayed like countless times as a 7-year-old, and for lads over here in building sites in the 80s, I'm sure our success at Cheltenham wasn't something that went unnoticed. So no, I think back to Arkle and everything, and people go, it doesn't matter if it's Irish, English, or this or that. I actually do think that national pride and being proud of the fact that we got great national hunt horses and great breeding operation on the flat, and Coolmore being a worldwide brand is a good thing for our sport, that we can be proud to say we have some of the best horses in the world in the flat and national hunt spheres. So I think we're a little bit comfortable that we've had such success here at Cheltenham in recent years, and then it dilutes the importance of whether there's Irish winners or English winners. But it did matter a while ago. It did matter in the late 80s when we didn't have winners here at all. And people say, well, it's just down to money and the horses were sold. Yeah, but, isn't that not reflective of the fact that we've had a great 30 years, apart from one massive blip with the recession, of an economy that's generally been on the up?
I think you're right there. We've kind of settled into the idea of us being better than England at this particular festival.
You hate the Prestbury Cup, is the look you gave me when I said that there a minute ago.
You asked me, am I into it? I said not at all, because it's just, we've taken it as a given now that Ireland are going to win this thing every year, but it's very tight. What is it, 11-10 going into today, John?
Yeah, and I think we win it or we might not win it. It is not as important as it was, but it was important. And when I came here at Cheltenham, you even know, when I came here at Cheltenham in 2002 for the first time, Ireland is very much how many, we might get 4 or 5 winners. I think we had 5 winners that year. So now there were less races run. But they introduced the likes of the bumper, the race on the Wednesday here. They introduced that specifically, I believe, in the 90s, so that would give us a chance of having Irish winners.
We've become like the Dubs, John. We've become smug like the Dubs. We've got too used to this way of thinking. It doesn't mean anything.
You never take things for granted. And last year, all the championship races were won by English horses. So this year, we've had 2 of the 3 championship races won by English horses, Paisley Park and Altior.
One quick one for you before we get into what's a pretty phenomenal day of racing ahead. Bryony Frost yesterday obviously was one of the stories in a week of big stories, in a week where the racing has been pretty incredible, but this story particularly was important.
It was, because I know Katie Walsh won a Grade 1 bumper on Relegate, but I think this is a good thing that we're beginning to stop talking about female jockeys on as a thing. They're just jockeys like everybody else. I think we've seen that with Rachel Blackmore's performance in the Irish title race this season. 84 winners in Ireland, winner on a Plutar the other day. And maybe when Katie Walsh and Nina Carberry retired, we thought, okay, that was a golden generation of female jockeys. But it proved yesterday that no, we got a new generation coming through. And then Lizzie Caddy also won at the festival for the 2nd year in a row. in the race later on, and Sir Delac. So, look, I don't think the gender matters. Like I remember, but once again, Rosemary Henderson finished, I think 5th or 6th in the 1994 Grand National, and it was a big thing. Now you got Bryony Frost riding as good a races as the male jockeys in the weigh room. So
it was class.
It was class. I think it was the 4th time she's won in 5 starts on Frodon. So she comes from good stock. Her dad Jimmy won the Grand National in 1999, and she's a very good jockey. And I remember even turning down the television last year. I was at Leopardstown and I saw Black Horton win the Novices Chase at Kempton. I said, that's a really good ride, whoever gave that a ride. And I just checked later, it was Bryony Frost.
There you go.
And no surprise, and a deserved win. And also yesterday, great story that Paisley Park's owner Andrew Gemmell has been blind since birth. It would kind of tug the heartstrings. He'd listened to the commentary on BBC 5 Live, and his horse wins the Stairs Hurdle. And I met him after, and somebody told him I had a Spurs scarf on. He was slagging me off because he's a West Ham fan. So, yeah, that was a great story, Andrew Gemmell. Just showing that, there's the spirit there,
Brilliant, Chad. Bryony's interview, by the way, afterwards with Ollie Bell on ITV is 100% worth checking out as well, because it was a brilliant piece of TV. Now, the Magners Gold Cup is obviously the one that we're all looking ahead to today. John, it's stacked with household names, so tell us which one's going to rise above.
Well, the one I've gone for each way is Album Photo. Now, there's a couple of things factored into his price, which is about 14 or 16 to 1. His jumping sometimes can be a bit suspect. He fell in the novices race last year when staying on, probably would have been 3rd. He has sometimes been a little bit sloppy over fences. But his jumping, I think, generally in the main is not bad. Will he get the trip? I don't know. On good ground, he might not get the trip, but factored into a price which is in double figures. The reasons why I like him: he won a Grade 1 at Ferryhouse last year. I don't even remember that incident where Paul Townend made a mistake and ran out of Punchestown. It was quite controversial at the time. Album Photo, which he was on, would have probably won the race, and he reunites with Album Photo today. The horse is only 7. He went to Tremor on New Year's Day, and he gave weight and a beating to horses like Total Recall, Imitation Only, on his first run of the season. And that was good on the clock in terms of the speed figures. Whether he stays, I don't know. But generally, when I've seen Album Photo at the end of his races, he's staying on pretty well. And of the 4 Willie Mullins horses, he's the one that interests me the most. It's a very difficult race to size up. The ground is probably going against Native River. Presenting Percy has had this bizarre preparation. We haven't seen a Gold Cup winner in 90 years win the race without running over fences that season. But they even changed the course at Galway to try him over left-handed obstacles as a prep. Now, he did win at Goran Park. He's run at the festival twice and won easily. So I wouldn't be surprised if he won. But Clande Zobo, is he better on right-handed tracks? Alex Ferguson, Parshall and Tim. Thistlecrack, 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said probably would win this race. He ran well at Kempton, second behind Clande Zobo. Will he get the trip? I don't know, but Thistlecrack could be a lively outsider. Bell's Hill, Ruby Walsh has decided to ride that one. A really good, classy horse, won at Leopardstown last time out, but has been generally a little bit below par at the Cheltenham Festival. Invitation Only, I don't think is good enough. Kenboy, I don't think is good enough either. So Annabelle Fly, Shattered Love, these horses all have chances. So it is a wide open race, and they'll go a furious gallop. There are no prisoners taken in the Gold Cup, and you'll need a horse that jumps and travels. And maybe the race last year left a mark on Might Bite, but Might Bite, if he came back to his best on the going, the ground is drying out all the time, and it could be even good to soft. It could be good ground, good to soft in places by the time we race at half 1 if there's no more showers. Might Bite might be for the forgotten horse of the race. So it's very difficult to call, and the one I've gone for each way is Album Photo, but not with huge confidence, with hope rather than huge confidence.
Just for anybody thinking about having a bit of a nibble on presenting, which is an excellent racing terminology on that I should have brought in at the top of the show. We've been discussing good racing terminologies, John, myself and Owen here being experts in the field, so to speak. Anybody thinking about having a nibble on the favourite presenting Percy today? You described him on the radio last night as a mysterious horse. You said we haven't seen much of him. His trainer is a bit mysterious as well. Give us a little bit more for anybody thinking about having a nibble on presenting Percy today.
Well, he turned up in the Novices Chase last year and he hammered them. So Davy Russell is 3 miles. The Gold Cup is 3.25 miles. An extra 2.5 furlongs in the Gold Cup. The horse, the ground doesn't matter for the horse. It's good or soft ground, it doesn't matter. Davy Russell had him at the back. He hunted around. He was never in trouble, and then he just pushed the button on Presenting Percy. He jumped well, and then he scooted up the hill to win by 7 lengths from Monolly, who didn't especially frank the form yesterday, was only 4th in the Ryanair chase, and then Elegant Escape, who went on to win the Welsh Grand National this year. So Presenting Percy then also won a handicap hurdle here at the festival a few years ago very easily. So he has won twice very easily at Cheltenham. The only thing about him is he has not run in Grade 1 races against senior horses, not novices, senior horses like Clanda's Oboe, like Native River. That to me is the unknown in the race. And that's why at 5-2, 3-1, he might win. But to be a favourite for the Gold Cup with that unusual preparation is unusual. And like he might win, but at the prices I can't have him.
Let's go through the rest of the races, John. We'll start with the 130. The first race of the day is the JCB Triumph Hurdle. I dare say nobody's going to beat Sir Eric in this.
Something could. It's a Triumph Hurdle. Juvenile horses they're only 4-year-olds. And we saw Apple Shakira turn up here last year, a hot favourite in the same colours, JB McManus, and was beaten. So Sir Eric is the most likely winner. Showed really good attitude in the race at Leopardstown that I saw at Christmas. He is very good on the flat. So he is the most likely winner, but I wouldn't be lumping in at about even money on Sir Eric. I think that could be a dangerous thing to do. So to me, it's a race I'm going to watch. I'm not going to have a bet in. These juvenile races are difficult. They're difficult to work out. It's easier now that you got the Boodles Hurdle that used to be called a Fred Winter because it's taken out some of the lower quality horses. But treating Sir Eric as an absolute banker to me is a dangerous thing to do.
Right, okay, that's interesting. We'll move on to the 10 past 2, so you're not going for a tip at 1:30. Whiskey Sour is a favourite in the 2:10. What's your tip there?
I don't have a tip again. My tipper in the last 4 races, so this is just how many runners? I think there's like over 20 runners in this county hurdle. They go Furious Gallop. A horse that maybe might be worth, there's a couple that might be worth, your attention. I think Mr. Adjudicator is interesting. He was second behind Espoir Champion Hurdle in his, I think, only run this year. He was a good juvenile for Willie Mullins. He's a 5-year-old. Mr. Adjudicator, I think Paul Tannen rides him. He could be thereabouts. Eclair de Beaufort, number 16. Jack Kennedy riding for Gordon Elliott. Had a very good preparation in the handicap hurdle at Leopardstown. He could be on the premises, but 26 runners, 2 miles. Good luck if you're trying to find a winner of that to make your Cheltenham. It's one I'm going to completely avoid. But Eclair de Beaufort for Gordon Elliott and Mr. Adjudicator for Willie Mullins are 2 that did interest me. The ground dry Nash will suit the likes of Shidabello, number 5 for Dan Skelton, and also Leon Cavallo, who was 3rd in the Galway hurdle for Richard Newland. So, yeah, but it's difficult. It's difficult, lads. Western Rider was the one I liked going into the festival, but maybe he's got too much weight, Western Rider. But he has been running consistently over course and distance. But once again, not going to have a bet in this one.
It seems to be the way in the 250, the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle as well. Looking across the newspapers today, you can't pin down one horse as the one that the tipsters are getting behind.
Yeah, once again, Rebecca Curtis had the winner a few years ago. Lisnagar Oscar has been well supported, has shown good attitude in his races. Maybe the ground is going against Darren Ross. Dinons has got course and distance form. So Davy Russell rides him. So the course form. The one actually that might be Commander Fleet, I think, will be a very decent horse in time. But the one that might be worth a look at is Rhinestone. Was second behind Commander Fleet at Leopardstown. Might be a little bit under the radar at about 12-1. But once again, this is one of the hardest races at the festival to work out. We did a 33-1 winner in this race last year. Remember Bertie's Dream winning this race at 33-1. It's a difficult race to work out. It's not, to me, 20 runners. If you're picking the winner of this easily, you're doing a better job than me.
Yeah, let's move on to the 10 past 4 then. We've already got the Gold Cup down at 3:30. So it's the St James's Place Fox Hunter Challenge Cup. And Ucello Conti here is actually leading the way in terms of the newspapers, John, in terms of the amount of tips going for a horse. Which one are you going for?
Well, this is one I'm actually going to get involved in. So I've gone for number 4, Cade du Burlet. I backed the horse in the race last year. The ground was much softer than it is today. He jumped the last with the rest of them. And he was maybe on the wrong side of the straight, where I don't know whether the ground suited him, whether it was softer up the hill, but then he kind of faded into 5th, but it was a very close 5th. He then went to Punchestown and won by 21 lengths. I backed him at Punchestown in a similar Fox Hunters race. He won by half the track. Now, the ground drying out, I think, will definitely suit Cade de Burlet. He warmed up for this by winning a point. Rose Loxton, who works with Paul Nichols, trains the horse. William Biddick knows how to ride around these races. I definitely think, surely on better ground, the Cage Burley will make the frame, and that's why I've had my main bet today for charity. Each way at 7-1 on Cage Burley. Uccello Conti I would respect. I'd also respect Shantou Flyer, who was second in a handicap race here last year. They'd be the three I'd respect. But I think the ground might be going against Shantou Flyer. I backed Pasha de Polder to win this a few years ago, but maybe at 12 years of age, he's light of better days. Cage Burley is the one I really like in this race, based on what I've done previously, and I backed him at 7-1 each way.
Right, very interesting. Let's move on to the penultimate race of the day. It's the Johnny Henderson Grand Annual Challenge Cup Handicap Chase. Do you have a tip in this one, John?
Yeah, I've gone for Bundoran for all the people in Donegal tuning in this morning. Once again, Magic Saint maybe ahead of the handicapper for Paul Nichols. Paul gave that as his bet of the week at the Road to Gold preview last Sunday. So Magic Saint could be a horse that could be maybe running in graded races over time. But once again, it's a 20-runner race. It's a cavalry charge. A Magic Saint, yeah, look, at 7-2, 4-1 is pretty skinny. So that's why I went for Bundoran at 14-1 each way. He's won over course and distance. His trainer said that he strengthened up over the summer when he won over course and distance first time out in the autumn here at Cheltenham, and he won easily. The next day he was raised in the weights and he was second, but they put him away. And I think to reach the frame, Bundoran at 14-1 might not be a bad bet to reach the frame. Magic Saint, a lot of support for Not Another Muddle for Gary Moore. Once again, could be ahead of the handicapper and is a good jumper. But yeah, I've gone for Bundoran here each way because I think horses for courses, that phrase does matter around Cheltenham.
And then finally, John, your last tip of the festival, it's in the Martin Pipe, it's the 5:30. What are you looking at here?
Generally, Gordon Elliott has got a good record in this race regarding, I think he had the winner last year, blow by blow. Dallas they picked on is well fancied for him. When I went to Leopardstown about 10 days ago, I just spoke to about 7 or 8 people. I spoke to Gavin Cromwell. He said Esward Allen had an each way chance. Did I listen to him and put him up? No, I chickened out on the stats. So sometimes the stats can go against you. But I spoke to Jessica Harrington, did an interview with her, went through every single horse she had. She had a horse, not many left, that ran well yesterday in the pretemps. And she said, I forgot one, Discordantly. That is number 13, unlucky for some. Discordantly is a good horse. He runs in the Martin Pipe. He's been running in these hustle-bustle races, and I think he might have an each-way chance. So Jessica doesn't send over horses to Cheltenham unless they're going to contend. There's not much support from in the market. I'm not too concerned about that. You can't discount the likes of Early Doors with John Joe O'Neill's son riding them for Joseph O'Brien, number 1 in that race. Acapella Bourgeois was once a great chaser, but who knows what's going to happen now. It's a difficult race to work out, but Daybreak Boy will have a chance as well. But I've gone for Discordantly. So Discordantly, Bundoran are very small each way bets today. Album Photo is my pick in the Gold Cup, but not with huge confidence, with a bit of hope. But the one I do like is Cage Burley. That's the horse I'm hoping to make my Cheltenham finish on a high note. Cage Burley in the 410 and the Fox Hunters. Definitely think it'll make the frame.
Good stuff, John. Sounds like breakfast is up there in the background. Have a good day's racing.
They're testing the fire alarm here, guys, so I better get out of here. Thanks.
Get out of there. Come on. Good timing. Come on.
These takes are just too hot.
I mean, if it wasn't so serious, that'd be funny. John Duggan on the line there from Cheltenham. You can check out all of his picks up on offtheball.com very shortly. And all this week, of course, on OTB AM as well. We're giving you the chance to win a pair of premium tickets to Ireland against Georgia. And all with thanks to SSE Airtricity and their new campaign. This is a new era. This is Generation Green. Congratulations to Gavin McLaughlin for his entry this morning. You've won a pair of premium tickets to Ireland against Georgia, and you're also going in the draw for the overall prize with 5 other winners for that overall prize of 4 premium tickets to the game, a hotel stay for all in Dublin, including dinner, the opportunity for one child to be a flag bearer at that game. We're going to be announcing that overall winner later this morning on the show. Right, that's that. Do keep your comments coming in. We're going to turn to UFC now. We're crossing over to London in just a couple of moments to talk to Niall McGrath ahead of UFC London. First up, Darren Till chatting to Niall yesterday.
What did you learn from that Woodley loss? Because, you know, they say of fighters sometimes when they suffer a big loss like that, they'll learn more than anything in their career.
No, they don't. You either win or you lose. There's none of this win or you learn. You lose. I lost the better man, you know, on that night. And little tiny mistakes I can take from that was, you know, in the fight maybe, I've always been a calm, relaxed fighter, but maybe I was too relaxed, too confident in myself that I looked past Woodley, and I shouldn't have been. He's one of the greatest fighters of all time, and you know, in the changing rooms I wasn't really warming up. I was just like sat there just waiting to go and take my belt, when it shouldn't be like that. You should be on edge. I wasn't on edge. I was just like...
Do you feel on edge this week?
Yeah, I feel, you know, my heart's pumping right now, because obviously I think George is in the room or whatever. You know, I'm here to fight. Fighting's it's a fearful business. I'm terrified of nerves, butterflies, happiness. All them emotions are running through every fight in this room right now. They might not say it, but I'll say it.
Darren Till, who's on the UFC London card this weekend, and watching cage side this weekend will be Niall McGrath. Good morning to you, Niall.
Hey lads, how you getting on?
Why, for the average viewer, would like myself, would you tune in this weekend? What are the main storylines?
Well, Darren, I think it's a captivating story. You know, such a young guy, a Scouser, a big draw here in the UK, and he's bouncing back from a world title loss at such a young age. And I think it's fascinating to see how Darren's going to bounce back. He's one of the biggest draws in the UFC. Sort of along the lines, a very brashy, sort of confident guy. But we've seen a very different Darren Till, I think, this week. And since that loss to Tyron Woodley, he hasn't been as maybe trash-talkingly, emotionally aggressive as he's been in the past. But, you know, a guy who's very hyped up, and we've just got word he's actually just made weight as well. Weight's always been an issue with Darren Till. He's weighed in at 171 pounds this morning, just around the corner. So that's very good news for him. The weight cut seemed a lot easier than usual, but he is a huge draw here in the UK. There's big hype around Darren Till still.
There's an exceptional piece on that very topic up on our YouTube channel somewhere from the last 18 months, I think, Niall, that you've done with him.
Yeah, exactly. He's a fascinating guy, Niall. I often wonder to what extent is some of the things that he says in the press front. Like, you've spoken to him a couple of times, and obviously to people who kind of have a passing interest, the quote last year in August when he says, I've got a girlfriend who's nearly 7 months pregnant, I don't really care. I've got a daughter in Brazil right now who I haven't seen for 1 year, I don't really care. I just care about legacy and greatness. That's what I'm in this for. And I presume that was just kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of stuff, was it?
Yeah, I think that was tongue-in-cheek. You know, when guys are cutting weight as well and they're in a situation like that, they have to be selfish to a certain degree and cut out everything else in their life and everything else that's around them. And I think Darren retracted really that comment as well afterwards, and basically said he was, you know, going through the motions during the weight cut on fight week. So yeah, I take that with a pinch of salt. It obviously stirred a bit of controversy, but Darren, I've sort of noticed in this fight camp and speaking to him and knowing Darren that he's very much along the lines of something that he learned from that Tyron Woodley fight. You know, his first loss of his career in a big fight. He hasn't talked the trash this week, as I said there earlier on. I think there's a different mental approach from Darren, which I find absolutely fascinating.
Or the other maybe interest for definitely Irish interest this weekend is Joseph Duffy. Obviously Niall as well. He's a guy who's 31. He's had 2 defeats, I think, in his last 4. Is it a little bit of a make or break moment for him now?
I think so. It's a huge fight against Mark Giacchese for Joseph. I think Joseph, the problem has been there's been no real momentum. You know, he's had that shoulder injury, he's had rib injuries, he's been out for a year and a half. It's a big moment. Joe's a fantastic fighter, but it's about getting that fluency, that consistency going, and some momentum in his career. And I think, you know, it is make or break time, Adrian. You're dead right when you say that, because in this division, in the UFC's lightweight division, it's the most stacked division in mixed martial arts. There's guys 1 to 15 in the rankings, and if you don't make a push, you're just going to get lost in there. And I think it is a big moment for Joe, and I expect him to win this weekend. I think it's going to be a big night. He's been out for a long time with injury as well, and he's just back. And I was listening to him last night doing some prep for today, and he was talking about the recovery from the shoulder injury and how he felt at the time that it was affecting his ability to punch. Any indication that, because we haven't seen him in action since that, any indication that that's behind him now and there is a bit more freedom in it? I think so, yeah. He was having a problem extending his hand fully even to throw a jab, so that's obviously a major problem. Then he had a rib injury, but as far as I'm aware, Joe's 100% fit, 100% good to go. And it's a tough opponent to Mark Giacchese has. Mark's a guy who's he is coming off 3 losses, but a guy that's coming into the UFC when he made his debut a couple of years ago with a huge amount of hype. He was one of the best talents in Europe. So I wouldn't totally rule out Mark either this fight, but I think in terms of Joe, what he needs to do, I was speaking to his mum and dad last night, and they're actually staying in the hotel here where I'm staying, and they're very confident Joe's going to go in and get the job done on Saturday night. And it's interesting as well, Joe, the background of his story. Joe actually could have gone on to play pro rugby. He captained a school in Wales, where he grew up, and it was just really interesting to see that 2 or 3 of the players that actually play with him are actually pro 14 players for the Cardiff Blues now.
Yeah, and sort of the divergence on the road could have led him to a very different path this weekend. The Bellator versus UFC aspect of things, Niall, will you give us a few words on that? And then, because we've seen some big Bellator signings and big Bellator meets over the last little while. UFC obviously trying to keep their foothold there, but where does that overall business aspect of it stand?
Interesting, yeah. I think it's a big weekend for the UFC in terms of, their TV deal with PT Sport. They want to get as much social traction as they can. But in terms of Bellator and the UFC, for me, all day, the better fighters are in the UFC in terms of quality, standard, depth of divisions. That's not going to change for some time. I think it was very interesting to see, obviously, at Dublin, the traction was massive online from Bellator. And I just think that reaffirms the interest, even outside of Conor McGregor, that there is of mixed martial arts in Ireland. But you would, as a fighter, if you want to, further your career, have a legacy, you'd still want to go towards the UFC. That's very much the feeling for me. But, Bellator are knocking on the door. The UFC have announced a card in Sweden as well for, I think it's July. So it shows to me that they're reaffirming their stance in this market. And I think that is due to that Dublin Bellator card, which obviously did massive numbers for Sky Sports. And if fans are to watch one other fight this weekend, I know Gunnar Nelson, obviously, he doesn't feel like he's Irish anymore. Watching your interview yesterday, he's turned his back on us. I think there's another fight on the card. I'm very, very excited about Joe Duffy's fight against Mark Giacchese. I know it's an obvious one to say, but just the styles in which both guys fight. They love to stand on their trade and their feet. Both very fluent, good boxers. So that's the fight to watch for me. And obviously, there's a guy called Nathaniel Wood as well. He's fighting Henry Quinones as well. That's a really, really good fight. He's a big, big prospect here in the UK. So that's another one else to watch out for. But listen, top to bottom, Adrian, it's a really, really strong card. One of the strongest European UFC cards we've seen in a long time. So plenty of fights. Good stuff. Lots more from Niall over the weekend. Thanks for the minute. Lovely lads, thanks a million. Niall McGrath on the line there from London ahead of a big weekend of UFC, and as I said, there'll be plenty more from Niall right over the course of the weekend here on Off the Ball channel, so stay tuned for all of that. You'll be watching, not watching? If I guess, I'll probably watch it on Sunday, as tends to be the case if I'm otherwise occupied after the match on Saturday. We'll see. I should probably on a Friday morning come in here and just do kind of like a play-by-play on every moment that I'm going to spend at the weekend, because I'm just asking, if you don't want to get unpicked have your personal life investigated, you could just say that and we'll just steer clear of it. What are you doing this weekend, Adrian? You mentioned that you might go to a parade on your own on Sunday. No, I didn't. You suggested that and I just ran with it because it seemed funny at the time. I don't know. There are no great plans, to be honest. Are you going to watch the UFC tomorrow night? No, I wouldn't have thought so. Why? Just not really. It's on our time zone. For anybody who's it's a rare treat that it's on our time. Watched this show with any great consistency will know I'm just not happy to discuss it and talk about it and delve into it at times when the need arises, but also happy not to watch it. It's not okay with the fact that it's not really for me. Right, fair enough, I guess. We mentioned a bit earlier that the AIB All-Ireland Club Finals are taking place this St Patrick's weekend. Dr. Crokes against Corofin in the football, and in the hurling, St Thomas of Galway up against Ballyhale Shamrocks, of course, under the tutelage of one Henry Shefflin. Owen caught up with Joey Holden during the week. Here's how it went. Your county man Tommy Welsh often says in our show that there are three pillars of society in Ireland: Fianna Fáil, the GAA and the Catholic Church, and the GAA is only the one that still goes strong. And he says in Tullerone it's the centrepiece. The pitch, as you've mentioned, is the centrepiece of that community. I guess that's the same for a lot of communities around Ireland at this point. Absolutely, yeah, no, it's definitely around Kilkenny anyway. Every pitch is thriving with young guys going, and I think as young as under 6 now, they're going around and just running around and hitting the ball where they can and just having fun. And it's great to see when you're down the field training as senior players. It's great to see all them young guys running around and basically not a care in the world, just running after a slitter and hitting it as far as they can and running after it again. So it's great to see, it brings immense pride to everyone around the parish when they see all their young kids, and everyone has a connection to someone, it's either their nephew or their first cousin, and they're coming home bragging about it, how well they played in a match, whether they scored a goal or not. So it's great to see, and it fills everyone with good pride and happiness, I suppose, which is what the GAA brings to a lot of people. Yeah, it's clearly very important for you the way you speak about it there with a bit of passion, that you actually see the legacy of what you guys are doing on the pitch, on the community at Ballyhale. Yeah, it's gas, we met some of the young lads there around the parish there last weekend, and some of my nephews are down there, they're only 4 and 5. They didn't really know what was going on, and like, why we went down to see Joey, can we just see him at home? So I suppose you're bringing him in to see the parish early on, and
bring into the pride of Ballyhale and see what it means to all the parents and that going around. So it does, it becomes an immense pride when you see all them young ones running around, and hopefully we can continue to help teach them and help guide them to bring on future success for Ballyhale.
Interesting guy.
Yeah, and it's been something that's been spoken about quite a bit, I guess, over the last couple of months, isn't it? The importance of that club, or any club, to that community. Mulliniochta was the big example we've had over the last couple of months. It's been a great old club championship. It's just a shame that it has to end on a week where we're talking about everything but the club championship.
Point taken. All this week on OTB AM, as we've been mentioning, we're giving you the chance to win premium tickets to Ireland against Georgia, and it's all but thanks to SSE Electricity and their brand new campaign. This is a new era. This is Generation Green. We've plucked 5 winners for the week, and you're all in the draw for the overall prize of 4 premium tickets to the game, a hotel stay for all in Dublin, including dinner, and the opportunity for a child as well to be a flag bearer at that game. So those 5 winners were Gavin McLaughlin, Ruth McDonough, Mark Walsh, Dara Griffin and Thomas Maguire. They were our daily winners. And drum roll, we've made the draw, and the winner is Mark Walsh. He's won the overall prize. We're going to be in touch with you a little bit later. Was that dramatic enough?
Oh, I'm actually staggered by how scared I was.
We should get a drum roll really and an audio track somewhere, shouldn't we, as opposed to having to do this.
Or a live drummer even.
Embarrassing for me. We'll be in touch, Mark, with you. Congratulations, well done. Enjoy the game and all the trimmings that come with it. We'll be in touch later with all the details on that. Cheltenham show coming up at 11:30. John Duggan will be back on the line from Cheltenham, as well Johnny Ward. Friday night racing, Brian O'Driscoll is going to be along with Maddie Williams to further preview Wales versus Ireland. Friday night racing with Patrick Mullins, John Duggan and Johnny Ward as well, all on the radio again from 7 o'clock. And yeah, I think is that pretty much where we're leaving it, Tommy? Is that us done and dusted? Oh, and I'm not going to ask you any more about what you're doing with your weekend.
No, it's been a pleasure, really.
No, listen, you've...
Like every week, I've absolutely loved every second of it.
Like a lot of good sort of... The best presenters are happy enough to be a bit giving of themselves and their own personal life.
I've told you every little bit of...
No, you haven't. You've just said that you're flying from Fiery's International Airport.
I prefer to call it flying internally. I fly internal, fly often.
It's happening now. It's 11:45 maybe, that's what's happened. Owen, I've enjoyed it this morning, even if you've been a reluctant participant.
At least there's one of us.
That's it from us for this morning. OTB AM back on Tuesday morning from 7:15. But from us for this morning, good morning.